The station where our veterans' voices are heard. MBR Talk.
Hey, thanks for supporting our channel by watching and listening.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Yeah. NY born, NY built.
What is up, yo?
Vanilla
Happy
Gorilla,
Sunday,
Big Dog.
Another Sunday
Untouchables.
with
Let's
your
go.
favorite
Step in the
hostess
ring like kings
with
of the block.
mostest.
Gorilla grip, Big Dog, never stop. Iron in the veins, no gimmicks, no props. This is hard work, black top and body slops. Ain't no flash, just fists and fake. We run through ropes like we run through
It
gates.
can't be. This is crazy.
You hear that roar? That's the
And if
Empire
nobody at
Shake.
home knows who
We
this
the
guy is, this is the Big Dog. He did get a tip from the Brooklyn Prodigies earlier on that they had travel issues, but not due to them being scared or anything like that. But oh my gosh, the Vanilla Gorilla and the Big Dog and the Untouchables
Now we run
just
shows
inserted
like the city
themselves
ran
into this
drop
tag team.
elbows harder than a steel trash can. One shot, knock them flat on sight. Two beats bred for the spotlight fight. They can talk tough, bark loud all night, but in the ring, we bite and we bite right. We are untouchables, NY bred, 2 fists swinging, leave legends dead. Joey bring the rage, Dave bring the brain. Together we storm like a runaway train. Untouchable, New York style. We don't tap, we make them snap.
Yo, what is up? What is up? Happy Sunday, fun day, whatever day it is today. We don't really know.
You might see this next week, during the week. I don't know
yet. You might
yet.
see it next week. You might see it the week after. You might see it a year from now.
You might see it tomorrow. I mean, I don't know.
See it 20 minutes after we're done. Who knows? But I am the Big Dog. That is the Vanilla Gorilla, and we are Turnbuckles and Stogies Pod, and we are all over the internet. Check us out on all streaming networks.
Well, you will see this before this is over, so I'm going to let it be known right now. The giveaway is live on our Instagram page for the Cigar Bro 3-in-1 V-Cut lighter. So you got your V-Cutter, your cigar rest, and your triple flame right there. Like the post. Follow everybody that's collaborated in the post. Tag 3 friends in the comments. Share it to your story. Tag Turnbuckles and Stogies Pod and cigarbro.co. And get your entries in. And that'll be live until Sunday. It'll be live. It cuts off Saturday. And Sunday it'll be live on the show, or if not after the show. And you will see your giveaway, and you will send us your address. And then I will send it off to Cigar Bros, and they will send you out your lighter.
So, on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we have a guest today from, go ahead.
The interview of the week is brought to you by Jersey Mike's, a sub above.
And we are back live with our guest, Daniel Lance of Domiain Cigars. Let's bring him up.
What is up, my
What's
brother?
up, bro? What's going on?
Great intro. Great. The music got me pretty pumped. Actually, I was like,
Thank you. That music is courtesy of our producer. He wrote the lyrics and put AI music to it.
Oh,
But
that's
that song is all original. He wrote everything. He just had AI basically, sing it or rap it, whatever.
Yeah. I was like a hairpin away from just like coming in after the intro and be like, "Let me tell you, brother," just going full Hulk Hogan on this. I've been hearing about you all the way down to Nicaragua. So you guys are. I'm more interested in you guys. You're pro wrestlers, like there's only one version of wrestling, right? There's pro wrestler and then there's the Olympic stuff, right?
Yeah.
So you guys are pro wrestlers.
Yeah. So he did it for between 20 to 25 years. He retired, and then in 2022, he got the phone call from a friend of his he retired from after he retired from in-ring stuff, he kind of stepped away, and then we started doing commentary together. I would say, what was it? I graduated in 16 from high school, so it would have been between 16 and 18.
Yep.
Even into 19, we did some commentary for a company in New England, and then did some interviews here and there. And then it was kind of, went dormant because of COVID. And then coming out of COVID in 22, and I think we got the call in April. No, the show would have been May. So the call would have been.
Who calls?
So a friend of his,
like a big man kind of figure. Or?
Yeah. So his friend, who he rode the roads with for over 20 years, owned a company in New Jersey, and he called him and was like, "Listen, I want to bring you out of retirement."
Okay.
And he said, "Okay, well, I don't know, we'll see. I got to talk to the wife or whatever, because it was really one of those, like, does he really want to do it? Is that something he was willing to do?"
Sure.
And then he said, "Well, not only do I want to bring you, but I want to bring Joey."
Right.
Okay. So I was at work. He calls me. And he's like, "Are you sitting down?" I'm like, "Yeah." Who died? Who's in the hospital? Because you get that phone call. Are you sitting down? Your first thought is, who's dying?
Right.
So he said, Magic wants to book me. I said, "Okay." He goes, "And he wants to book you for a tag team match and put us together. Do you want to do it?" I'm like, he goes, "I told him I'd talk to you." And my first thing, because that's something I've wanted to do since I was a kid. Right. My first reaction is, what are we having this conversation for?
Right.
He's like, "Well, I just wanted to make sure." I'm like, why are we even having this conversation? Because to me, it was like, that should have been a no-brainer. Just say yes and clue me in when I got home.
Yeah, but I mean, it seems like in pro wrestling, that is it's a good sign that they call you back, right?
Yes.
It does seem like a recurring theme, right? But what I'm always most impressed with is I believe we just lost the Nature Boy, right?
There's a few of them that just died.
Right?
Nah, Hogan's
the one that just passed away, but I think there was one after that.
Hogan passed, but we just lost another one of them here recently, but I'm always impressed by the athleticism. The athleticism going into age. I'll be 38 this year, and I feel like I'm like 110, right? I see, I'm not gonna be flying around in the air doing this stuff. but I mean, those guys really go for it. They really go for it.
No, I tell people, because I've had the experience of hitting the mat. It's not. People think it's a spring. There's no spring. When you hit, it hurts. It's metal framing. It's got about that big of a thickness of plywood, and that ain't that big.
Yeah.
Sheet metal and then the canvas. There's nowhere to go.
It's pretty rough, and that canvas isn't very forgiving either.
Because you think about it, it's stretched across all that framing, and the only little bit of padding you might have is inside the apron. Once you go outside of that,
right,
there's no padding. So, that show was pushed back a few times. The one I debuted in.
It's like falling on 300 grit sandpaper.
Yeah, it's not fun. And then we got pushed back till October. In October of 2022 was when I made my in-ring debut, so to say.
So I used to work for a company called Ringside. Are you familiar with Ringside?
I know who Ringside is very well.
Yeah, Ringside Boxing. Yeah, so I used to work for them and Combat Sports.
Yep.
Which we were the big distributor for all the tap out stuff, and so I didn't know much about any of those.
That was one of my favorite brands when it first came out.
Yeah,
but I don't like the new style. I'm more to that old style when Mask and everybody was in charge of it. The original that was it. Because UFC was at the peak, everybody was sponsored by Tap Out, and that was everywhere.
Yeah, and so they used to come to the office that I worked in, and I didn't know who any of these guys were. You know, I didn't really follow boxing or combat sports before I got the job working for Ringside, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the boxing part and everything. And I mean, I used to have the only person that I really knew was famous, right? Because I'm really bad at placing people, but my mother would watch The Simpsons, right, and got me into that. And they had the character on there that mimicked Don King, you know, and so I knew Don King, and so his office used to call me to order like gloves and different crap like this, right? So I knew whenever I was talking to them, I was like, oh, this is important. These guys are
like, oh, this is Don King. Oh God,
yeah. But I met like so many of those guys, and it was really pretty incredible.
When you start getting into those circles, it gets pretty interesting, especially like in wrestling, because that's kind of how this came about, was because, you know, a lot of wrestlers smoke cigars and a lot of wrestling fans smoke cigars. So our thought was let's merge them together. You know, let's kind of bring everybody to one spot.
That's a great idea.
And you know, kind of give, in my eyes, what was kind of missing.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, yes, you have your wrestling podcast, you have your cigar podcast, but at the same time, you don't have one that puts it together.
Yeah, kind of merges into.
And that was kind of the niche we wanted to fill.
Yeah, there's you're absolutely spot on. There's a lot of people I've actually known of some that were reps and became wrestlers, or were wrestlers and became reps. Things of that nature. And it seems like every other person in cigars has some type of sports background, or they have an IT background, which I came from an IT background. So
now that I'm sure that background has helped you kind of a lot going into this industry.
Yeah, quite a bit. You know, there's a lot of where I think what you do in pro wrestling is much more phonetic. You know, your storytelling, yes, which matches so well with cigars. There's, you know, we always say it's selling by narrative. Is people want to kind of understand the background of the cigar and everything like that, and the company that they're engaged with and experiencing. But there's a lot of similarities there. I think today the biggest challenge that cigars have is that they're trying to break ground in a very digital world that doesn't really care for them. And that mirrors so much of what professional wrestling went through the 90s, and eventually became, you know, the most televised sport, you know, really in the world. I mean, cracking out NASCAR and all these other events, you know.
Right.
So it's I've always told people, I think the cultural significance of the cigar in American culture is just getting started, which sounds kind of wild to think about, but you know, when you look at it, there's so few places in American culture today where you can go have a level footing with, you know, good men and women, not intoxicated, right? Have conversations, have, you know, common discourse. It can be about pretty much anything under the sun. But we used to have that in American culture all over the place. You know, you used to have that in your speakeasies, you had it in your libraries, you had it in your diners, right? And all of those areas where people would meet up. You know, I remember, you know, growing up in a small town, my mother would always every diner in small town America had one table, and we affectionately called it the liar's table, right? And what it was all the farmers, everything like that, they would all come into town and they would grab a cup of coffee at the end of the afternoon, and they would sit at the liar's table and they'd tell their lies for the day, right? You know, caught a fish that was this big, you know, I'm planning on getting this, I'm planning on doing that. So those types of things have, you know, mostly kind of evaporated away from American culture. So that's a big part of why I believe that cigars are just starting their course of how significant their impact is going to be. You know.
So going back to what you just said about how cigars and wrestling get together? Tell us how you, as a person, got into having your own cigar line, your own factory, and everything else. Please.
Okay, yeah. Well, it didn't have anything to do with wrestling. I don't want to let you down, but but it did have to do with me having the urge to find community and things of that nature. I found cigars. It started out as a celebration thing, as it does for many people. Became something that I was very interested in from literally the first cigar that I smoked. I said, how can I make my life so I can do this every day? And that was a Fonseca vintage 2001 Tubo and in Lonsdale. And I got to meet Emmanuel Casado, the guy who actually made the cigar at the time. And I reminded him every time that I would see him that you're the reason why I'm here. But in that very first cigar, it went on to being like a monthly thing, weekly thing. Once I found the community of cigar smokers through cigar shops and so on, I was all in, you know. So finding that community, like-minded people that want to have, you know, common, sane discourse together. So I was really there for that and the cigars, of course. But started working in retail. I was already working, you know, tech jobs on the side and so on. But started working in retail. At a tobacconist that was called Outlaw Cigar Company. It's still there. We built that company up to being probably the largest chain of cigar shops in Kansas City and even the Midwest.
I was going to say I've definitely heard that name before.
Yeah, we did really well with it. I was right there as they were expanding into their second location, and I had to work with a very aggressive team that was super passionate. Everyone on the team was absolute cigar nerds. So had to learn a lot very, very quick there. But eventually my tech work kind of outgrew my ability to maintain that job with Outlaw. And I went on to build a couple of companies and eventually, you know, always settled into having a part-time or side job. Working at a cigar shop, just, you know, ringing the register. I'd pick up my, you know, checks every couple of weeks type of thing. And I was just there for, you know, for the love of the game, so to speak, right?
The love of the game and the discount on the cigars.
Yeah, that was nice too, you know? So yeah, the interesting fact for your audience, depending on where their background comes from, a lot of your tobacconists that work behind the counter, they actually have to buy a lot of their own cigars. So some shops provide a discount, and a lot of times people are, you know, buying them themselves for many years to kind of build up their knowledge to eventually become a tobacconist. So it's something that, you know, people are passionate about. It's an incredibly blue collar. I would say when I first got into it, was a little more white collar. There was probably more business professionals in cigars than what I typically see today. And I don't mean that as a bad thing or a jab at cigars. I think what's happened is the expectation of what cigars are and who consumes them has also evolved quite a bit in a significant way. And in so many ways due to our work, like with Outlaw, where, you know, we made sure that the everyman was, you know, welcome, comfortable, and we kind of got rid of all those distinctions that are meant to kind of tell people you're supposed to be or fit one paradigm or another. Again, that coincides so much with pro wrestling, but you know, so moving on from there, you know, more money in the brains scenario kind of played out. I had built these companies, and I had to take a trip to London. I take this trip to London, and I was supposed to go on to Jordan. I couldn't enter Jordan because of my cybersecurity background. So I called my boss and I go, "Hey, do you care where I live?" And he goes, "No, I don't care." And just a week before, I had been in Nicaragua. It was my first trip to Nicaragua. I came out with a retailer friend of mine, and I told him, don't let me buy a house my first trip. I absolutely loved it. So I'm standing in London Heathrow Airport. I'm on the phone with my boss, and it's $3,000 to fly back to Nicaragua. It's $5,000 to fly back to Kansas City. So I booked a trip back to Nicaragua, got a house, got a farm, everything. The rest is history, really. And so kind of the junkie that moved to the poppy field, you know, I had spent at that point more than 10 years working in retail capacity in the United States. I also own an accessories company, Lula Concepts. We make the best cigar cutter in the world. And I had run those businesses for quite a while and wanted to learn the manufacturing side. And that's where I became really good friends with Esteban Diesla, my now business partner. And we you know, teamed up right after he sold his factory. He was running a very successful factory that was able to sell themselves to the brand that they were primarily manufacturing. And the day that had happened, I just happened to be headed up to Esteli. I had a house in Managua at the time, and I was headed. Managua was the capital of Nicaragua. So I was headed up to Esteli, and I go, "Let's meet up for a smoke." And he goes, "Well, I'd love to meet up, but I don't have a factory anymore. You know, come to the house." And so I go, "You know, what are you talking about?" And I asked him just on the spot, "Hey, well, how about you make a cigar for me?" You know, I didn't know if I was buying a bundle of cigars, you know, something to smoke around the house, or, you know, here we are. So what ended up happening was he had this vision really since he was very young to, you know, not only grow the tobacco, own and operate the factory, and put the products on the market as a brand. You know, that's been the vision that he's been working towards, you know, for more than 40 years now. And you have to understand that all of the people that he apprenticed under, you know, Cubans that had come to the Dominican Republic, because he's not even Nicaraguan originally, he's Dominican, Esteban. So whenever he came to Nicaragua, there was like less than 25 factories here in the valley. Today, there's more than 87 factories here in the valley.
Wow.
He was the buyer of tobacco for the Cuevas family, for Sergio Cuevas, who he apprenticed under for a great many years. And he knew the quality of tobacco coming out of Nicaragua. So he knew that was going to be where cigars were going to go. So whenever he came out more than 25 years ago, you know, that was crazy talk, because every major successful factory was from the Dominican Republic, you know. So you had to really be, you know, betting on your future to leave and go start your roots somewhere else. And there was very few people around that came here. Today, all of those people built some really impressive companies. And Esteban is really one of only two people to ever work their way from agriculture through every single position in premium cigars to owning their own farms, their own factories, and their own brand. There's only one other family that's actually accomplished that. So it's quite unique. So whenever we met up to kind of discuss this, that was his vision, and it was like, well, we don't have a factory, we don't have a brand. The brokerage at the time, which he had already started growing tobacco, was operating out of, you know, rented spaces, and so it was like we you know, we're gonna have to build something massive fast, and that's what we proceeded to do. And I would say that, to your point, my tech background helped quite a bit, because, you know, I built a lot of fairly large companies in pretty short time frames. We did, you know, 2 unicorn startups. Unicorn's $1 billion valuation before an E round or a public offering. And we, you know, hired and had a staff of more than 1,000 people at 2 of those in under 4.5 years. So I'm used to building at scale, but I'm also used to doing it with a bunch of VC money, which is a very different, very different whenever your own cash is on the line. But no, you know, it's been for the cigar nerd in me. I mean, you know, I don't have a job, but, you know, I'm basically just getting to do what I want every day, you know. But the actuals of having the employees and having you know, constantly expanding footprint, you know, in Nicaragua and the United States is quite challenging. You know?
So now, how did you come up with the name Domiain Cigars?
So Domiain started out as a coffee company originally. So I had a coffee company, and another startup, which was a coffee company. We had over 300 some odd locations throughout the Midwest where you could buy our coffee, beans in a bag, ready to drink, bottles, cold brew, all that kind of stuff. And during COVID, there was a lot of complications as to how we were going to continue to operate. We paused continuing with the company, kept the distribution company open, kept the insurance on the accounts type of thing. And then it became evident, that this short-term fiasco was going to become a multi-year marathon. And I had already at that time purchased, I was leasing a house here in Nicaragua. And, I was kind of planting my roots here. So the uncertainty about whether or not the market would return for us in the United States, in that company, I think we operated for a little over 3 years as Domiain Coffee Company. It was unfortunate, but a great deal of our employees were already contractors that we had no way of being able to continue to pay or anything else. So unfortunately, whenever it shuttered, we actually had a lot of different concepts for what we were going to call the cigar company. Esteban wanted me to come up with a different name for the factory. As you can see here, I wanted it to be named after his family because I feel like it should represent the people that actually make the cigars. And in the boutique kind of cigar world, which we're going to start in today, even though we're the first vertically integrated cigar company in probably more than 30 years to come to market, we didn't want to just call it, Daniel and Esteban or some, some version of our initials or something like that. So Domain was, kind of always this creative outlet for me. I was, with my coffee company, I was always testing marketing ideas and, had a lot of fun actually, doing design work for the company and everything. So that's what it became. Became Domain Cigars, a totally different vision, branding, everything like that. We basically had to start from scratch on putting a product on the market. So in so many ways, again, like I want to keep tying things back to wrestling, but in so many ways, it's like a wrestler getting like a new skin as a new character, right? But still having that kind of creative ambition in so many ways.
So now the names kind of intrigue me for each of the cigars. Sure. Because I was wondering, like, how did you come up with those names for each one? Like, you have what is it? I'm smoking the Negentropy. Then you have the Entropy. Yeah. How did you come up with those names?
So the kind of scientific naming comes a bit from my background. So I was a hacker, but I was an infrastructure hacker. So I worked on things like power grid infrastructure and helping companies secure those types of things and figure out if they're vulnerable and so on. So a lot of that was like cyber physical systems. So I would work on like heavy duty jet turbines and all those kind of things. So I always had like an interest in science and mathematics and everything like that. So I don't particularly like a naming convention that tells you what the cigar is supposed to smoke like. We have tasting notes in the box, but those are just kind of like to jog the memory of the tobacconist. They're not really meant for the consumer to need that to understand the cigar. So there's that. We also, if you notice our logo, if you look at the band, there's always a double shock diamond in the band. Every single different band has that. That's part of our main company logo. And that actually stands for Esteban and I, because with my coffee company, we had a Calibris was the actual iconography, and in the eye of each animal, because we're from the Midwest, Kansas, so it was a lion, tiger, and bear, and we had a star in the eye, which represented each of the founders, and it had a biblical meaning to it as well. But so we took that double shock diamond laid them over each other to represent Esteban and I at the heart of the project. And then what we have is there's actually an orbit around each one of the bands with a set of stars which represent, friends and families and supporters of our goal. And the initial series is named the Constellation. So we wanted something that had to do with thermodynamics and particle physics and things of that nature to kind of the most elementary understanding of the world around us. And we were also shooting as far and wide on the retail space.
Right.
So there's two different kind of methods, right? And again, I'll use wrestling as an analogy. So there's one method is you do local, you have a local company, right? And you work for a local company and you build up your fan base there.
Yep.
And then you kind of branch out into, maybe doing some collaborations with other regions, right?
Right.
That's actually how most cigar companies start, is they start as kind of hometown heroes. And we were in a position where we had all of this infrastructure. This is not a prop. This is a real live factory in the background here. So we had all of this infrastructure and we had the ability to go national immediately. So having that capability to go, straight to the national companies and to be able to supply them an endless number of cigars that they were going to order. So that was a big theme too, and the inspiration of calling it the Constellation. But we don't typically reference it that much because again we try not to make the theme be overbearing in the experience. Yeah.
So now, do each of the colors on the bands represent something, or do they coincide with kind of like the wrapper? Kind of what is each cigar kind of, whatever you can tell us, so to say.
Yeah. I mean, loosely in so many ways, right? So like the San Andreas, I knew I was going to use copper. All of the bands and all of the iconography for the boxes are based on basically
this
black.
One is the San Andreas.
Yep, San Andreas. The neutral.
And then,
so
then you have the silver and black.
Yep, entropy. So yeah, like the San Andreas, we put in copper because Mexico is Mexico San Andreas, black San Andreas. They're known for having coppersmiths in Mexico. It's kind of copper spinning is an art that has kind of ceased to be as common there. And then as far as the Rosado Habano, which is Nugentropy, that is a full body Habano. It's very unusual Habano. So we want to
it's got a nice kick that I look for in the, as I call it, it's not a pepper bomb, but that pepper is there because of the Nicaraguan tobacco.
Sure, absolutely.
That's one of the main reasons sometimes I smoke a lot of the heavier cigars from Nicaragua.
Yeah.
It's because people always say to me, how do you smoke that? I said, it depends on what you want. I said, there are days I smoke Connecticut's. There are days I smoke Habanos. I said, I might wake up on a Friday morning and say, you know what? I want a nice full body cigar. And I'll, if I have it, I'll go to like a New World by AJ. I said, that's what I'm looking for in the morning. I'm looking for that, that kind of wake up punch.
So I do the same thing actually. So I was always famous for in the morning I would smoke a double Ajero.
Right.
So that's actually the Nugentropy is a double Ajero cigar.
That's
so
this is the double Ajero.
Yeah, the gold band. Yeah. So with the wrapper on that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I can't hear you.
He's smoking the silver and black one.
Oh, okay. Silver and black. Yeah. Entropy.
Yeah, he's smoking the entropy. Yep.
Okay. And how is that for you? Are you typically fuller body?
Yeah. So we both are fuller body smokers.
Okay.
I tend to, because I worked for a company for a little while. I worked for a small boutique company out of Florida, and being on
Do you
that
want to say
side,
which one,
I used to work for Tampano.
or I don't know if I know that. I apologize. But,
Yeah, no, you're good. He deals with a factory in Nicaragua.
Okay.
Like I worked for him for a little while.
Okay.
And then, New York is hard to get cigars in. I was out there pushing the product, but
Mhm.
it's because of the sales tax, it makes it a lot harder.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So it was a little tougher for me to try to get cigars in. And I think it was 6 or 8 months I was there,
Mhm.
and then we parted ways.
Mhm.
Again, no hard feelings. Everybody seems to think I got hard feelings. I have no hard feelings. It is what it is. Stuff happens. I don't, if it wasn't for what I did there, I wouldn't be able to do this.
Okay, I think you could.
I
sure think you could.
Because it gave me more of my knowledge being on that side.
Okay.
Being able to
Yeah.
relate and kind of, have the conversations with, people like yourself and like Ish from BAMF and all these other guys, because,
Sure.
I'm able to have that of like, hey, when I was in the stores trying to sell it, it's not easy.
Yeah.
And it gives people watching not the effect, but it tells them, hey, listen, I did kind of what some of these companies are doing. Obviously not to the scale you guys are, but I said I was out in those stores. I was doing what the reps do. It's not as easy as
difficult business. It's a very difficult business. It is.
It is, and that's what I try to get across to people is like, you see these guys out here and you're always wondering, oh, why isn't it in this store? Why aren't they here? Why aren't they in this region? And it's like, well, the reason they're not there is because of A, B, C, and D. Well, how do you know that? Because I worked for a company. I tried doing this.
Right.
It gave me more of my knowledge to be able to work on to work on the show and to be able to compare with people of what happened and what I did and stuff like that. Because I think people think it's not people, but some people think it's pretty easy to do that.
Yeah.
As far as the selling goes. And
Right.
I try to explain to people, after having done it for almost 6 or 8 months, I'm like, it made me realize and have a stronger appreciation for what you guys are out there doing.
Yeah.
Because I understand it and I respect it. And, I'm the first person to tell you, if I can pass cigars off from me to a shop and say, hey, listen, smoke them, try them. I enjoyed them. They were on my show. If you want, and I what I've done is like, if I have cigars from, somebody that said, hey, can you help me get these in the stores? I'm like, listen, try these cigars. And I'll tell them, hey, I did an episode with them. I'll send you the link, watch the show, smoke the cigar so that you can kind of learn about the brand and learn of what you're smoking.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting, it's interesting because I kind of started this after we started this. So like right before COVID, me and my dad tried to do a podcast. Okay. The only way I knew how to do it was to buy the old like Zoom microphone that you can plug everything into and record it, but it didn't work out well because that's what I've seen everybody use. And then me and two other guys, me and one guy used to go on Instagram Live during COVID and smoke cigars and talk about brands. And, we try to have brand owners on if they wanted to come on and hang out with us because we knew a lot of brand owners through doing the Instagram Lives. And then, it got to the point we would sit on live and nobody was watching, but that's because we would do it late at night or, during the day when nobody was home. So, we used to kind of take it to the private Instagram calls, like through your DMs or, set up a group with like 2 or 3 of us.
Yeah.
Go on and smoke. And it would just be us talking wrestling, smoking cigars, talking about cigars. And then we decided to bring on another guy who was our third co-host. And then, the 3 of us started doing it. And then we brought my dad on and was like, listen, we can really make a show out of this.
Yeah. It's better if people can consume it at will. But
absolutely.
Instagram Live really fell off because it used to be really good.
Yeah, so that's how I got my start. As far as
really
as I hate to say it because I don't consider myself that, but a lot of people do. I would get on with another guy who was an influencer.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I'm not an influencer. He goes, yeah, you may think you're not. He's like, but you are. People are listening to what you're saying. People are smoking the cigars that you're on there smoking. If you find a company, people are going out to look for it.
Sure.
Yeah. Now let me ask you about this cigar that I'm smoking,
The Entropy.
Entropy. Yeah.
What is this made with? And is it a full body, a medium body? What is it?
Yeah, so Entropy is, we would say full body. It is also a double Ajero cigar. Nicaraguan fillers with Nicaraguan binder, and then U.S. grown Connecticut broadleaf. That broadleaf we source from Dunn & Foster in Hartford, Connecticut. Great operation. Some fantastic tobacco.
Yes.
They grow out there. I actually go out and visit with them and everything. But good people. And they create some of the highest quality, I think, broadleaf that you can get your hands on currently. And
that's where Dunn & Foster, that's where Drew Estate and everybody gets their broadleaf from for the Nika Rooster. Because I only know because we did the barn smoker there.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So we
do it there every couple of
4
years.
times, and they always, like you said, they nicest people in the world. They have they'll talk to you if you see them walking around.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they let you go. Because obviously, you can't touch the tobacco for the most part, but they take you to the curing barns to show you.
Yeah.
You know, what they did is they passed around. I call it like the big stick with the leaves on them hanging down.
Yeah.
For everybody to kind of look at, and then they would let you say, hey, you know, feel that and feel the difference between this brown leaf at the end and this green leaf at the beginning. You know, and it kind of like takes you through the process of the aging.
Yeah, great people. But so that cigar Entropy was part of the first blending session that we actually did in this room. And we're sitting right over there. We had like one table, and the Bunchero and rollers still work for us to this day. So the factory wasn't even finished yet, and it was the first time after years of growing tobacco, belling tobacco, everything from everything. It was the first time that we actually had it all in one place, and we're going to blend a cigar. And the days were very eventful. So putting together that blend, we were astonished how well everything came together in our first real 2 blending sessions that we did. And we blended pretty just about everything here that we have in the line. But yeah, that particular cigar, we had an issue. We didn't record, and this actually speaks to how difficult tobacco is. So you know the classifications, you know, Ligero, Viso, Seco, and so on. So one of the Visos, you know, a Viso is not just a Viso. There's different levels of Viso even. So you can have a little thick, which they call fat Viso or grease Viso. And then you can have it very thin, a Flaca or something, you know, where it's a light version, but it's still actually a Viso. It wouldn't quite qualify as being a Seco.
Right.
So we had a scenario where one of the Visos was basically misrecorded, and we didn't get that exact recording on the tobacco. We then went out and had to basically create like 5,000 different variations of this. So when we work on a blend, we actually will work on it through all of the sizes that we're going to present on that blend. And for that particular line, for basically everything that's in the Constellation today, it's 9 sizes, which is pretty crazy. But all of them are feature cigars that we plan on making for decades. So the idea is that it's worth doing the work. So we actually had to rediscover that blend. And it's one of those things in tobacco with quality and consistency is you're constantly working that direction. You're never really I'm trying to think of how you would say this. You're never satisfied, sure, but you're also in so many ways you're never really proud because you're never done.
Right. You're always looking to better or perfect the blend the way you think it should be. You know, you're always throughout the years of the blend being on the shelf or something like that.
Absolutely, and doing a fuller, more complex cigars is more challenging. A lot of boutiques maybe don't go into that as much, but you know, the pipeline of tobacco, for example, you know, we grow enough tobacco over 300,000 pounds a year, close to 400 this year. I think we'll hit. But that's a roadway to maybe 3 million cigars, 3.5 million cigars. So having that access to that type of tobacco is actually what allows us to achieve that consistency year over year. But also having access to those tobaccos puts you in a scenario where you can do things that are more complicated in your blends. And I always tell people that, you know, Domiain was really created today for about 5% of the cigar smoking market. And what I mean by that is there's, you know, 95% of people that consume cigars, they're cigar smokers. You know, they may not tell people they're cigar smokers, right? But if a cigar breaks out, you know, they're going to partake. So that's about 95% of all people that partake in cigars. They don't smoke every day. They're opportunistic. And the 5% that do smoke every day, that are in lounges every day, that are talking about cigars every day, that's really who we built Domiain for. So we built this company for a very critical audience, right? And that's also challenging, right? So we're actually working on our first project that will be targeting that 95% of more casual cigar smokers very soon. So again, packaging, marketing, you know, speaks to those different people, the blend profiles and so on also speak to those different people.
So with that, we're going to take a quick break and then we'll come back and we'll keep going. We'll talk more about your accessories company and kind of more about, you know, your brand and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
I was broken for a while, a drop of blood for every mile I'm on. I took all that they gave and lived to fight another day. But if today is all I get, I'll make my mark and you can bet that I'll never surrender. On this life, and I'll never surrender. On this life, I can't change the past, but I can change how the story turns. 'Cause it's not mistakes that make us, but the lessons learned. Because what doesn't kill me will make me stronger in the end. And I'll never surrender.
this life, and I'll never surrender. On this life, and even if I fall, I'll get back up, standing tall again, with a medal on my chest. God knows I've done my best, because what doesn't kill me will make me stronger in the end. And I'll never surrender. On this life, 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 on this life.
What is up? What is up? We are back. Turnbuckles and Stogies Pod, your favorite podcast of all things that have to do with cigars and wrestling. And today we have Mr. Daniel Lance on here with us, the
There we go.
CEO and
There we go.
founder
Bigger
of
for you.
Domiain Cigars.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
We appreciate you coming on. Actually, I saw you Smoking Sounds the other day.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. You got out.
Yeah, he's another one that we've been in talks with doing a collaboration show with.
Okay.
Having him on as well. Me and him have been going back and forth because of wrestling and cigars and stuff like that. So it's it's kind of like I seen him post something with wrestling figures, and then I kind of just we got to talk, and he was like, I said, yeah, I run this and this. He was like, oh man, that's gonna be perfect.
Either of you want?
Yeah.
No, thank you. So I know you said this, but I'm going to ask the question.
I'm going to turn it over to you for a couple minutes.
Move from Kansas to Nicaragua?
Yeah. Yep, that's correct. Yeah, I live actually in the factory, which sounds kind of crazy, but we have like 3 buildings here. So this is the saloon where we roll the cigars, and to the right we have like a kitchen building where they do like all the lunches and everything, and then to the left we have my packaging and my house. So we basically have like actually I guess it's technically like it's like 3 it's 3 buildings, but I guess it's 4 units. If that makes sense. So anyway, but I live like 4 feet away from this building. Yeah.
Well, that's pretty cool. I mean, just out of curiosity, are you married? Is your wife?
No.
Kids?
No, that's the only way this is possible. Yeah. So no, that would probably not work out really well. But being an expat, I mean, moving out of the United States, I mean, I still have a home in the United States, which we need for our corporate address. Yeah, in doing so, I rarely actually run into very many couples or females that have expatriated the United States. I don't see it that often. I see more often these days. I kind of see guys around my age range and or retired guys. You know, they worked in the post office for 40 years and retired and came down here. So is that you? Did I nail you? Okay, you were postal.
I retired in April. They offered early out, and I took it. 28 years of working for the government, and you know what?
No.
It was fun the first 15 years, and then after that, everybody took over and it went downhill. And I was like, you know what? I need this early out. So they offered an early out, and I said, I'm out. I gotta go. And then 2.5 weeks ago, I started a new job part-time. I was only working part-time.
Okay.
I met the manager from Kansas City or Missouri or something, and I had to go to the hospital. I caught a slight heart attack.
Oh shit! Oh, that's terrible. Wow.
So that's why I got all these cigars here, because I haven't been smoking like that. I only smoke when you guys come on or I come out here. I light one, I smoke it in like 12 minutes, and it'll sit there for 2 days, and then that's it.
Yeah. Well, you gotta take care of yourself first. That's the priority. There's all kinds of commentary about health impacts of tobacco, particularly, and I think that might be part of the issue. Is the commentary is mostly about tobacco and not all of its subcategories, because tobacco gets used in a lot of ways, and it's interesting because there's a lot of new research that is kind of contrary to what is typically known, which I find to be fascinating. But the thing is, I always tell people, look, if I drink soda pop or I eat potato chips at the very nice cigars, I would have a lot. So you always got to keep after yourself.
Let me ask you. So, what do your cigars go for per cigar? Like the 3 cigars that we have the one I'm smoking, the one Joey's smoking, and then a gold one.
Yeah, so kind of touching on what Joey was talking about earlier. Me as the manufacturer, I set a price that the retailers take it into their shop at. Now, the taxes and regulation of those retailers is widely variable. So I have some retailers that will set much higher prices, but that is a result of oftentimes regulation, rent, the ability to occupy wherever their shop or lounge is. Our manufacturer suggested retail, which does not include oftentimes those additional costs that may be unique to your state. Our average price is $10 to about $14. So it's kind of right in the sweet spot. I think we did an analysis recently, and we found that we were in the ballpark of about 40% of all companies whenever it came to pricing. So pretty reasonable. Yeah.
I mean, here in New York, they went up to 75%. Now they're trying to do 100, which is not going to happen. It ain't going to happen to 100% because, trust me, you have a lot of, and I'm actually getting ready to. I'm working on some things for the city of Poughkeepsie now that we moved here. To run for council member here. So.
Oh, wow. Okay, great.
This shit ain't happening. It's a very good cigar, by the way. I liked it. This is the second one I'm smoking. I think I smoked I have the gold one left. I think I smoked the other one. So
you smoked the neutron. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, this is another person that wants to come on.
So you're running for city council?
Yep. I contacted the lady this week. She asked me what I want to run for. She said, right now, the only thing we have is legislators. I'm not ready for that yet. I want to run for council first. Maybe
Yeah. Learn the
get
ropes.
the door down here, and then who knows? You know what I mean?
But
so yeah.
I think as long as you haven't been to any islands, I think you're going to do all right.
Well, listen, the mayor here, her brother has been arrested in 2 counties. So,
dude.
Yeah, he's been arrested in 2 counties, but that's on another story.
It's wild too. I mean, not to talk about politics or anything, but the number of people in that position that have criminal records, and sometimes very serious criminal records, quite alarming. Quite alarming. But,
well,
we need more even grounded people putting their hat.
The guy that's running the United States of America, he's not too pleasant either. I mean, hey, come on now.
Well, if you had asked me a year ago, I might have disagreed with you, but today, I don't know what to believe now. I mean, it's pretty it's pretty on the nose.
Yeah, it's a tough decision to run for a thing, and you got all these sexual acts on you. But
it's craziness.
So like you said, I retired from the post office. I took the buyout. I had a good job. I was gonna be doing good, and then, like I said, I got caught up in a heart attack. Well, not a heart attack, a stroke. Caught up on a stroke. So I really haven't been able to do much except sit around the house, drive my daughter to school, pick up my son, drive my son where he's got to go, drive my wife where she's got to go. But it is what it is. I mean,
Sure.
Thank God I'm able to do what I'm doing now. But I would sit out here and I'd smoke cigars. They'd be at work. I'd be out here smoking a cigar, be online, talking to everybody. I mean, I still talk to them, but not like that anymore.
Sure. Yeah.
But what else? So what else do you have coming down the pipe for
products, you mean?
Yeah, like new cigars, like new.
Yeah, products. We have been. It's not a huge secret. Working on our Connecticut project. So that is what you would refer to as Connecticut Shade or Claro, right? A lighter cigar. Now the thing is about doing a Connecticut is there's typically the stance on Connecticut is when you make bold and complex cigars, even our medium-bodied cigar, a lot of people say is quite complex in how it's medium, which is neutral. But in blending a Connecticut, a lot of people would be tempted to make a full-body version of a Connecticut, which doesn't really serve what the Connecticut smoker is really looking for, right? So the ballpark of where a Connecticut smoker thinks a full-bodied Connecticut is versus where people tend to put it means that it sits on the shelf. So what we have been doing is we wanted the example Connecticut cigar, which the example Connecticut cigar is basically 3 real notes, right?
Correct.
It's a 3-note. It is a little bit of spice, a slight sweetness with a cream, background. That should be your prototypical good smoking Connecticut. So we wanted a version of that, right? That had those elements but amplified. So we wanted it to be a louder version than what we have previously seen of those elements in a Connecticut. So we spent the last several months building that together, and we really kind of went back into kind of Esteban's catalog of ideas. We really looked at where Connecticut was over the last several decades, and we wanted to recapture what did that 90s. Did you smoke cigars in the 90s?
Yes.
Yeah. So that
smoke when I started wrestling.
So that 90s cigar smoker, he was smoking in Connecticut, right?
Right.
And he wasn't compromised at all on smoking in Connecticut, because even though the Connecticut oftentimes is a flute cured tobacco, it's pretty much how you get Connecticut. It's called the Virginia Gold process, where you flute cured tobacco, but basically they weren't smoking something that was compromised, even though it was faster to market. And that's part of what crafted the flavors that people typically associate with Connecticut, was because of that speed to market. So we wanted to do a version of that kind of respected the heritage of where the 90s, the music of the 90s, right, was louder, more vibrant, right? It reinvented kind of pop. We wanted to do something that was inspired by that,
Right.
Full Connecticut smoker. So if you smoke Connecticut cigars all the time and love them, I like them at the end of the day more than I like them at the beginning of the day, I've found, which is kind of a unique thing because I smoke a lot of heavy, complex stuff. But I wanted something like that. So that'll be coming out. I can't say the name yet because the whole legal mumbo jumbo hasn't been done yet. But just lawyers and all that nonsense. We're launching another brand. So I also can't say the name of that. That'll be under Kevin Baxter. So Kevin Baxter is a blender that's done some incredible projects. This is only the second project he's ever put his name on. Usually he is a ghost blender for other brands, or he is a palette hitman. He does a lot of custom one-off stuff. So pretty excited because it's been 13 years since he's actually put his name on a product. And he works for the factory now as well. So excited about that. And then Entropy. Entropy is getting a vintage cabinet series. So it's a cabinet series. I think we called it Heritage Cabinet. So we're doing something called a wet pack process. Are you guys familiar with what a wet pack process is on the cigar?
The wet pack is like is almost kind of like what J.C. Newman does with the Yaguas, right? Where that kind of it's almost similar to that process, but you guys probably aren't using the exact same process.
No. So that's a great reference, though. So I have actually not heard someone bring that up, but it's very similar, right? The Yagua process is, again, you're wrapping in leaves, right? You're bounding it, and they used to do that to the bells of tobacco. So before they had burlap, they would do the Yagua process to the entire bell of tobacco to actually seal up the bell so bugs and stuff like that can't get at the tobacco. So it does create a much wetter tobacco, stays at higher humidity, like maybe 20% or so mass content for a really long period of time. And that's why those Yaguas kind of end up all these different shapes, when they bound them together. So the wet pack process, where that comes in and makes this unique, is these are Coronas, right? So 4x46 Corona. 5x46, 5x46. So they're Corona format, and they're sorted, right? They go through, they come down to mass content, mostly. They go into sorting early, right? They finish their aging in a will of 50.
Right.
And in doing so, that's actually one of the few times as a cigar smoker, whenever you buy a cabinet series, that you're actually smoking a cigar that aged with the other cigars in our aging rooms. So that's really unique because most of the time, whenever we're sorting these cigars, we're color grading them. We may be color grading across 400, 200, or 1,200 different cigars. So we may be color grading out of multiple different cases to bring the colors together so the wrappers all match. Right. But a lot of times those cigars in the box have never actually touched each other. They've actually never been side by side. So what's really unique about the cabinet series is you're sorting them early. bounding them together, letting them finish aging. And then when you put them in a wet pack, what you're actually doing is it's a paper. It's often paper and foil. So it's a foil. They call it cigarette paper, right? When you put them in that paper, the foil helps with thermal conditioning, right? Because you want to keep them very thermally stable. And then the paper is actually about dryness. So the thickness of the paper kind of dictates how dry the cigars will get over an extended period of time.
Right.
So doing the two of those on a cabinet series, I've never seen it. And I'm like, why have I never seen this before? And there doesn't seem to be any good logical reason why it hasn't happened. So I wanted to take the two of those elements, kind of again respecting our heritage, but doing something new. The packaging design is going to be wild. So it's wildly different from anything that I've actually seen on the market. Because what we did was, instead of doing a foiled paper, the cigarette paper, what we did was we took a 45 GSM paper, which is like newspaper print. We're wrapping the cigars in that. And then we've been working with something called high vapor barrier material. And we've made a custom thermal blanket for the cigars. So in the box, they're actually in this custom thermal blanket, right? And then we took it a step further because the company we were working with to make the thermal blanket, they're like, well, we've never done any kind of like embossing of thermal blankets. And I wound up finding out that nobody had ever done that. And we actually went out and created, they call it an implement. We actually created the tool that does the emboss of the thermal blanket, so the thermal blanket can attach to the cigars. It's going to be very cool.
That seems like an interesting process.
Yeah, it is. It is. The procedures are really pretty fascinating. It's very, very nerdy. And initially, we're only selling those through our flagship accounts. So if you go to domaincigars.com, go to our product locator, you can actually see the in-stock inventory of the different shops and everything based on their order history in the last 6 months. It'll tell you if they're a flagship account or not.
Okay.
And from there, you'll be able to see who has those cigars in stock. There's not going to be a lot of them on the market, and the price point is quite attractive for Corona. You know, a lot of times Coronas, they sit on the shelf now because they're like $12 a lot of times. Right. for a cigar that you get 30 and 45 minutes of fun out of. But it's a great cigar.
I mean, it's true because like I've been guilty of this Corona is $10, but I could get this Toro or this Robusto or Gordo for $15. It's like
it feels
when I would buy that, and then but it's true. And then you go smoke the Corona, and it's like, well, a lot of times, and I learned this from a few different people. Like we had Terrence Riley on 2 weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
His family is Quesada.
Yeah.
And he was telling us that the Coronas are what a lot of blenders smoke.
A lot of them, yeah.
Those Corona sizes, he said, are what, a lot of the blenders smoke. And it's like, well, if the blenders are smoking it, the consumers should try it. Like he was telling us one of his cigars, the Arsenio, was what his master blender used to smoke. That's his blend.
Yep.
So he was like, it's like an insight into the master blender. And then that's when I was like, well, I was like, that's interesting. And then, I mean, I've smoked Coronas throughout the years, but it's not a typical size that I would go pick out of a humidor.
Sure.
But, like you said, for that short smoke or, you want to really get those flavors, that's kind of the size that a lot of people go to.
So listen.
That was very good.
We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back with you. Come on.
There's a hotel window, many floors above. What's missing down there is love. Thinking through the the smoke that fills my mind. Don't worry, it's not my first time. Adios, amigo. I'm so glad I seen you. I won't be seeing you around. Adios, amigo. I've been looking for you since I stepped foot in this town. They say it's all inside, heaven and hell. What happened to that angel when he fell? Give it just one try. Tell me you don't like it. Be God for a moment and don't despise it. Adios, amigo. I'm so glad I seen you. I won't be seeing you around. Adios, amigo. I've been looking for you since I stepped foot in this town. Step outside and breathe. Play a little in the street. Hope it's not me they're sending. Move on from over there. Get the kids a little scared. Oh, these fences, they need mending. Adios, amigo. I'm so glad I seen you. I won't be seeing you around. Adios, amigo. I've been looking for you since I stepped foot in this town. Adios, amigo. So glad I seen you. I won't be seeing you around. Adios, amigo. I've been looking for you since I stepped foot in this town.
What is up? What is up?
And we're back.
We are back. Your favorite podcast. I am the big dog. He is the Vanilla Gorilla, and we are here with the CEO and founder of Domiain Cigars.
So let me ask you this, because I seen it on your Instagram. You have a box press collection as well.
Box press. Yeah, absolutely.
So now, do you have that for all your lines or just the one line?
So just Negentropy and Neutron currently. Would you like to see it in Entropy, which is the broadleaf?
Yes,
Sure.
please.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. We haven't done it yet. You get more damages when you box press cigars.
Right.
So because you're quite literally like crushing the cigar, So we have been pondering it. We're currently making a box press Connecticut broadleaf project for a customer.
Ooh.
And it's looking quite good. So we have been considering that. Yeah.
No, because I noticed that on your on your Instagram when I was scrolling through when I first reached out to you, and I was like, you know, and I was looking, I'm like, wow, you know, for a smaller company that, you know, you've made the waves, but I feel like at the same time, not a lot of people have heard of. To have that many under your portfolio as far as like the box press collection, you know, you have the 9 sizes for the 3 lines is like, is a lot, but at the same time, you know, you're trying to reach all of your masses.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you know, I like a lot of cigars to smoke, and what I've always found is that depending on what mood I'm in, you know, the size of the cigar speaks to me differently. So certainly, I think that that's a little bit more limited for me personally. Whenever it comes to broadleaf, I like the broadleaf presented in certain sizes. I like, you know, Connecticut Shade or Connecticut Claro presented in only certain sizes. So that said, you know, whenever I'm smoking Habanos or I'm smoking San Andreas or I'm smoking Air Barak, right, I tend to find myself moving around in size a lot more. But yeah, for sure, without a doubt, there's like 3 sizes that every retailer, you know, wants to stock, which is Robusto, Toro, and they call it Gordo, but 6x60. Right. Gordo is typically 56 ring gauge. Anyway, but yeah, like 6x60 is, and so I would say that that's probably 80% of the market really is in those sizes. Yeah, go ahead.
Let me ask you this question. So, are you in any lounges in Jersey and New York?
So we have a couple that are kind of close. Like we have Harry's that's close to you all. But anytime you're looking for a product for Domiain Cigars, you can go to domaincigars.com, go to our product locator, and on the website you can see exactly what's in kind of your local area. And if you don't see anything close enough, you can also type in online, and it will bring up all the web shops.
I was just going to say, can you order online? Do they order from you, or do they order from your online stores?
Yeah, we don't do anything direct, so we only work through a tobacconist. They would need to, you know, go work with one of those. But we do have some great online. We have Small Batch Cigar, of course. We have, you know,
and that's a Small Batch is a good one because Small Batch does a lot of the boutique stuff.
So now I'm sitting here and I'm looking at the 2 things that are sitting in front of you. What are those 2 things in front of you?
So these 2 boxes?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is what our boxes look like. So this is Entropy and Neutron. So these 2 are both Robusto Gordos that we have in the factory. We actually have a patent on our box design because we kind of redesigned the internal liners of these boxes. Yeah, this is what the
and now, what are the sizes on the Robusto Gordos? What's the sizes on those?
So Gordos are 56 by 5. So 56 ring, 64ths of an inch.
So this would be the Robusto Gordo that you sent for the that one, and then this one is the I guess this one's called his Legacy Bellicoso, the Shaggy Foot.
His Excellency. Yeah, His Excellency.
Oh, His Excellency. My fault. I can't read.
Yeah, no, you're fine. So that cigar has a fascinating story too, because it's, if you look at the foot of that cigar, you can kind of hold up the camera so you can see it. But the foot of that cigar is nude in that we actually pull back the wrapper and the binders, which is pretty unusual for making a shaggy cigar. Normally they only pull back the wrapper, but we wanted you to taste just the filler blend.
Yes,
I didn't even notice that.
Yes.
Yeah,
whenever you pull the binder back too.
Yeah, so usually the binder kind of has this horizontal look. So we pull that back as well. So you're tasting just what the bunch tastes like as the blender is putting it together. And then we made that cigar really for us. We weren't really going to release it.
Right.
And then we liked it so much. I liked it so much that we said, hey, you know what? We'll roll the dice on this cigar and just see how it flies. And it became like our 4th best seller.
I was just going to say, how does it sell?
Yeah, it's like number 4 in the entire company, which was very, because we almost passed on it, but we named it His Excellency because Esteban is from a republic. I'm from a republic. He's from the Dominican Republic, which is a constitutional republic. I'm from the United States, which is a constitutional republic, and we both live in a democracy. So it was kind of a nod to where we're from. The head of a republic or the president of a republic is always called His Excellency. Is their formal position. So,
and that's this. You know what? And this too is like a good size as well. Like you smoked sizes like this before. The little short,
I actually,
Bellicoso sizes. Those are.
I think I smoked the other one.
Oh yeah, he smoked the one shorter than this.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, he smoked the relevant. Yeah, relevant.
Yeah.
So we did that as a shaggy, so you could taste the blend, right? You can also, and people have asked me this before, like, well, I kind of want to butt up Bellicoso without the shaggy, right? I'm like, well, just cut the shaggy off,
right?
And just cut the shaggy off. And you have, yeah. We finish the rest of the cigar exactly the same way as we would.
Oh no, he's got the relevant right here.
Okay. Yep. And that's
it. Like
you go in the morning.
Of this one.
Yep.
Of the Negentropy. He smoked a smaller size of that one, which I believe was the Robusto.
Okay, in the Robusto.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what all the teams sent you. They do a great job. I don't know what all they probably just grabbed a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I can tell you what, because I took a picture of it.
Yeah, we take pictures and post up in our Discord and things like that.
Okay.
Yeah, so it looks like it was the Robusto size.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, he took the big cigars. I got the small ones. It's okay.
No, I gave us each one of the.
It's okay.
I gave us each a Toro, and then I split up the smaller ones.
It's okay.
So what's kind of interesting too about the sizes, now that we're onto that.
I was just gonna say how each line has how many sizes total.
Well, really, all of them are designed for 9. All of them are designed for 9, so we can kind of release them at whatever point. We've made all of them, like even the ones we haven't released, we've made them all in each size. But what I would point to is a lot of brands on the market would not do that due to it being, not very cost effective. You have to make all these different sizes of cigars. They sell at entirely different rates, so it becomes an inventory management nightmare. But we're also, the first vertically integrated cigar factory out of Nicaragua in 30 years, right? So we wanted to basically approach it from the standpoint is we have the ability to do this. We can do this for your brand as well, which we actually make a lot of cigars for other people now as well. But we wanted to have all of that variation. And one of the key things that you miss out on the consumer side is that when we make those different sizes, most of the time they require about the same amount of tobacco. So if you would use, X number of grams and X number of ounces and so on in this, half will or 50 cigars, that doesn't really change your consumption in the manufacturing process. That's pretty standard. What is different though, if you have your own brokerage as we do, is you get to play around with sizes. So on that relevant size, that shorty, right, you're not getting a compromised experience because we're not cutting off, 50% of the usable material and discarding it. What we instead do is we go into our tobacco supply and we use small and extra small leaves. So we'll use leaves that
you essentially blend for the size.
Yeah, so we're not blend to size. That's what they do in the Dominican Republic, where a lot of times they do that in the Dominican Republic. It's more their style. Mm-hmm. We do something called ratio blending here, which Esteban was around right whenever this, started to really become a thing.
I've never. That's a new term for me. I've never even heard that one before. That's an interesting one for me.
Yeah. So what we do is we take all of what our blend is, our component. We primary the blend in 52 ring gauge. That's our prime blend, right? Robusto Extra. Right. So we take that prime blend and then we stretch it out using the same calculation of ratio. And then to get the density of flavors where we want them to be, we'll use extra large, we'll use medium, we'll use small, we'll use extra small leaves, and that's kind of how we position. So in so many ways, it doesn't make sense that there aren't more cigars on the market in all those different varying sizes, because we're in an agricultural business where you would benefit from consuming that tobacco equally. So there isn't ever going to be enough tobacco that we're able to produce for relevant to become more than 20% of sales. Right. If that starts to happen, then we just won't have the cigar available at all times. Right. And that's kind of why we don't call it a core line. We're not going to start taking, large and extra large leaves and cutting them down to 4 inches, just to put this cigar on the market. It just doesn't work that way.
Speaking of core line, do you have obviously you have these 3 cigars. Would you consider this your core line of cigars?
I think other people would consider that. Yeah. We call them feature cigars, right? We feature these cigars because we have the tobacco to be able to produce them. We have a finite supply of our tobacco, right? But we're not forecasted at this point to outscale that for another 2 or 3, 5 years.
Okay. And
so,
now, owning your own, essentially, like you said, you're vertically integrated. So having your own farm, your own factory, you guys do all the boxes in house and everything as well.
Packaging is the one element we don't do in house. So,
okay, no, because what I was getting to was kind of like having almost essentially all of that in house. Does that cut your cost down for your cigars?
Well, so that's an interesting topic. So there's kind of 2 topics at play here. Now, packaging, we do the design in house. We have designers that work with us. I design most of the industrials, right? So box design, all that kind of stuff. I do all that. Now, graphics, illustration, all that, I bring in a third party so that I can kind of step back from the canvas and take more of an editorial position.
Right.
It's still a lot of work, but then on the actual creation of the boxes, right? We have great partners that we work with, and we do that on behalf of our other customers as well. So we had one customer, for example, they had a line of production that was done in the Dominican Republic. We actually made all of the boxes for the Dominican Republic cigar line and sent them to them in the DR, so they had a consistent offering. So we are quite involved there. Now, on pricing, what do I make at the end of the day, doing all this? The short story is nothing yet, and I probably won't for maybe 2 years, 3 years at this kind of rate.
Yeah, I was going to say, with everybody we've interviewed, from some of the bigger companies, has said normally it takes between 3 to 5 years to essentially get your initial investment back, and then you can kind of, like you said, start gaining a little bit of profit here and there to be able to integrate back into the company to produce more profit.
So we've been growing tobacco now since started in 2019, 5 years. The factory was founded officially on paper in 23. But we were building Domiain that entire time. So we didn't take on other customers.
It's right on the band as well. And I like the little, the little Easter egg on the band is, EST 2023.
So now,
I always think that's cool to find out, especially like you said, having grown tobacco for, 5 years.
Number of years.
To that essentially final product for you of being able to make your own cigars. And then, kind of putting that on there, because a lot of times you don't see companies put on the bands, that little fine print of, EST 2023. Sometimes it'll be on the bottom of the boxes. Sometimes it'll be somewhere else on the box. And, there are people who don't buy boxes of cigars. They're buying this. So now they got to look and see, where these companies are coming from, how long they've been around.
Right.
Because I've been giving myself.
Yeah. You should take a look at the barcode on the back of the cigars. So speaking to that, whenever I got into cigars, I didn't have enough money to go buy boxes all the time. And the barcode, we wanted to put the leaf there matches the the logo of the factory.
Yes,
So
and
we wanted to put
I do like
the
that
logo of
logo.
the factory on.
Guys,
Thank you. Yeah.
I'm gonna jump off because I gotta go take some medicine. I gotta go to sleep.
Okay. Yeah, it's great chatting with you. Yeah.
Thanks for coming on.
Yes,
I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Joey will talk.
Yeah, we'll keep going because this is
Yeah.
so normally if it was a live show, an hour and a half would be done, but that's why I like sometimes recording with people like yourself or people who own a few different avenues. Like you said, you have the accessory company, you have the cigars, you have the factory, so you're able to kind of essentially cover all the bases as far as the industry goes. And
I've never been a retailer. I've never been a retailer.
Tell you, I will say for having essentially myself, and this is not a knock on you, having not heard of you a lot.
Sure.
This cigar is again fantastic, and everybody says you say that because they hear. I'm like, I would say that if they weren't here.
Okay.
Like
I appreciate that.
I think that's what people kind of think is like, because you see a lot of podcasts. Oh, their cigar is fantastic, but then you never see them smoke it again.
Yeah.
When I tell people if I get sent a 5-pack, a 3-pack, whatever, I said there are times, I'll say, okay, what do you want us to smoke? And if you said, the Negentropy, okay, cool, I'll save that, and I'll blow through the other two before the show. But I was like, I want to save them so that when you're on here, I can kind of have them in front of me and ask the questions I was looking for, so that I know more about it when I go to smoke it.
Right. Yeah.
And
listen, I appreciate that.
We're this podcast and if you go back and watch more of our episodes, you'll see we specialize in the boutique world.
Yeah.
Because a lot of our friends are in the boutique cigar world.
Right.
Like we have Ish from BAMF Cigars and Rodriguez Olivon Cigars, who's a great friend of ours. He's in the boutique world. Broncano Cigars, he's a friend of ours. Carolina Blue, like a lot of our friends are in the boutique world because during COVID, again, like yourself, you guys coming out of COVID had kind of started this brand where during COVID was kind of like as I call it, the rise of the boutiques.
Yeah.
Because
a lot of them shut down.
Yes, a lot of them did shut down.
Yeah.
But it was nice to have the options out there.
Yeah.
You're not always smoking the big box brands. You're trying guys like you, like Ish, like Broncano, and I didn't hear, and Broncano's been around since 21. And I found that out from another friend of mine who has another podcast just like this.
Okay.
505 Cigar Review, my buddy Danny. Yeah. So he's another one that, when we got into this, he was another one that, because it's kind of like the cigar world. I always say, there are some people who want to help everybody. And then there are people who could basically say, screw off, I'm not helping you. And we've been fortunate enough to make friends like Danny and, connect throughout the years with like Smoking Sounds and Lounge Life, who are friends of ours. And be able to do like cigar loons and leaf cutters. When you can get together with some of these podcasts, they might be smoking something you've never heard of, and they might say, hey, listen, I'll send you, Daniel's info, and listen, reach out to him, tell him we spoke and you want to have him on the show.
Sure.
And then there are times that I do my own, research. It pops up on Instagram, and I'm like, oh, these guys, let's reach out and see what happens.
Right.
And that's kind of essentially what I did with you. I forget how I came across your cigars or your page. I don't remember.
Okay.
But no, I think it was scrolling, like it popped up, to follow you, or one of your posts popped up. And I started scrolling through your page, and I was like, I kind of briefly looked through, and I was like, wow, I'm like, I've never heard of this brand. I'm like, but the names and the cigars and the pictures that you were putting up kind of like caught my eye. And I was like, you know what, let's reach out and see what happens. And I always like sitting down with people like yourself who own their own farm, who own the factory, who do kind of everything, like you said, in-house, because you don't see that too often. A lot of times it's and this is a knock on this is not a knock on people who, like ourselves, who want to start their own line but don't live in those countries.
Mm-hmm.
But to be able to hook up and maybe do cigars with somebody like yourself or like Ish, who are there, or you can go to the factory.
Yeah.
And sit down with these guys, because I could tell you, hey, Daniel, listen, I want to make our, I want to see if we can do a small run of Turnbuckles and Stogie cigars.
Mm-hmm.
After having our conversation, hey, we like the full body blend, maybe a little bit of this or this, and let's just try it and see what happens. You already kind of have an idea of what we like, and we already have kind of the rapport from doing this, just sitting down and talking, because that's essentially, and this is, we try to get this over to people, and we're just regular guys that just happen to have a podcast.
Yeah.
And that's what I tell people, like, oh, you don't have I said, I don't have a script. I said, because, like in the beginning, when we asked you one question and you kind of went off and told your story about this and a story about this, and a story about this, that's what we want. We want you to be able to come on here and, oh, well, listen, this is a cool story on how I got this name, or, like you said about, you're talking about Esteban and his history in the business and stuff like that. We like those stories. That's what intrigues us, because, it holds, essentially, I always say, stories like that, there's stories behind the blenders and how you met and everything. So there's more of a connection to the cigars and to the brand now.
Right. Yeah, you're more embedded into it.
Absolutely. And I like the fact that you are very knowledgeable in what you're doing.
Well, you have to have some knowledge of it,
right? And
what we do every day. But
no, for sure. And I like the fact that you're open and willing to share your blends, and kind of, again, I always say sharing as much as you want to share.
Right.
Because I've had people come on here and go, well, I can't disclose this, and there's a few people like that we know that don't like to tell their blends because they want the cigar to speak for themselves.
Yeah.
And there's a
we speak to the ones, yeah.
Right. No, and I like that, because they're friends of ours. They're very good friends of ours. We've been following them and friends with them for years. So when we have them on the show, it's basically like we're just sitting here catching up, essentially, like everybody says, shooting the shit. It's like a cigar lounge. It's just a virtual lounge.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm like, this is the same questions and conversations I would have in person, as long as the time permits, obviously. Like, if there's an event going on and, I talk to you for 10, 15 minutes, and then, I walk away, I let you do your thing. And if you come find me and want to talk, hey, listen, I'm more than open to that. Like, when I first met Rick Rodriguez from West Tampa, who used to work for CAO, I met Rick in his last CAO event. He retired for like 3 days and then came back on Monday morning with a whole new company. And we just got to talking, and I was like, I'm like, I'm actually looking at starting my own cigar. Any tips you can give me? Right. And Rick is like us, he likes to sit and have conversations and talk with you. So I was like, listen, I'm going to let you go do your thing. I appreciate you. Thank you, whatever. And I walked outside. Yeah. And I went out and I was smoking cigars. And mind you, this is the middle of the event. He came outside and found me.
Yeah. And Rick's a real nice guy.
He is. And he's just he's just like us. And that's what I always say. Rick is an everyday guy who happens to just own a cigar company.
Yeah.
And we've maintained a great friendship. Like, I don't text him all the time because I know he's busy. But, I shoot him a text. Hey, bro, it's Joey. Just want to check in. I miss you. I love you. Hey, bro, miss you. Love you. I'm like, when are you coming back on the show? Listen, bro, I got something. We'll come back on. Don't worry. And what kind of blew my mind, and this goes back to what we were talking about before, with podcasts and cigar brands helping each other. When I mentioned I was starting my own cigar line or considering it, and I had a couple of blends I was working on, he turned around and was like, if you want to send, if you don't mind, I'd love to give you my feedback. I'm like, yeah, because in my eyes, it was like, this guy doesn't have to help me.
Yeah, sure.
I didn't ask for it. He offered, hey, I'd love to test your blends and give you my feedback. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I would love to have your feedback.
Yeah.
Because it totes to his, like you said, like Esteban, it totes to his lineage and legacy in the business.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's interesting when you get guys like Esteban and him who are willing to give you a hand or, even give you feedback.
Right.
And I'm sure that had to be good for you getting to connect with Esteban and having him, essentially want to work with you. And now you might have said this and forgive me. Is he your master blender? Is he a partner in your factory? What is his essentially his role for you?
Yeah. So we're both co-founders of the whole suite. That's he serves the company as a master blender, of course. But really, I mean, his actual title in so many ways today is like chief of operations.
Okay, so he oversees all of like the factory floor operations and stuff like that.
For this and the brokerage,
right?
And we have of course another supervisor, which is Uraldi for the brokerage, and he's basically our chief of agriculture.
Okay.
Then we have a chief of production here for the factory. Then we also have operations supervisor for the factory. Our chief of production here is really chief of production means that you're the head QA and you're also the person who maintains the blend mastering, right? And
now QA, that's like quality assurance, I would assume.
Yeah, quality assurance. Yeah, they basically call it a similar role.
Okay.
So they have to know a great deal about cigar manufacturing to achieve that position. That's actually what Esteban did for Latin America cigars before and helping build out Latin America cigars, which today is STG Nicaragua. So they were required, and so he was making cigars for the Turanos. He's making them for CAO for.
Oh, that's awesome.
All the really iconic brands that come out.
We actually Jack is another one who's a friend of ours as well.
Okay, very good.
No, it's crazy.
So it would have been Charlie.
This world really is.
Yeah.
That's again, like you said, it goes back to wrestling because I tell everybody, like the cigar world, it seems so big, but at the same time, it's probably about that big.
Yeah.
It always seems so big because you don't realize who knows who and who's friends with who and who's connected with who. Because by the time you trace it back, it's like, well, like you said, Esteban worked with STG Latin America or Nicaragua now, and now he's made cigars for the Turanos, for CAO, for this one, for that one, and it's like, wow, that's so big and so small, and you're fortunate enough now to have him co-found the company with you and be able to have that effect on your company and kind of have that lineage behind them.
It's we're really proud of all the work that he's done. I mean, from he recently coming off of selling his other factory was called McSweeney. Whenever he sold that factory to the brand that they were making and the owners of, it wasn't really clear who he was going to partner with on this. And look, I had talked to him, but he had a lot of people actually that were trying to work with him. He was in very, very high demand, and a lot of those guys are way more cigar famous than I don't really consider myself any bit of cigar famous, but I think owning a company, people put you on that idea. But the thing is, he had a lot of better offers, but I think my offer was the simplest. My offer was straight down the middle. We do everything and we make this fucking thing successful.
Right.
So it was I think the the easiest thing for people to grasp. But you mentioned earlier about like price of manufacturing and how that plays into what we do.
Because because you own your own field and everything like that.
Yeah, is the tobacco cheaper? Is the factory, is the buying the cigars from the factory cheaper, right? And the short story is no. Until you hit about, I think the breakover is about 3 million cigars, right?
Okay.
As a factory, as a brokerage. When you hit those scales, right, economy of scale starts to kick in, and it does present the potential to be cheaper. At this point in time,
right,
where we're at in manufacturing Domiain cigars, which is in the hundreds of thousands. So we're already above probably 90% of the market.
But we're the boutique market for sure. You're definitely, I would say, above most of them.
I always tell people that the spread of all cigars, right? The PCA trade show, where everybody's going to go here.
Speaking of that, have you considered going to that?
No, we went last year, and we'll go.
Oh, you did go. Okay, good.
Yeah. So
now, how is that experience for you, being a brand that's essentially at this point only, well, as of last year, would have only been 2 years old?
Great, yeah. It's a great show to go to if you want to meet new retailers. I've been going since. When was the first show I went to? The first show I think I went to was in 2010 or 2012, something like that. I have to look it up.
That's right. You said you worked on the retail side.
Yeah, I was never a retailer, meaning I didn't own.
Right, you didn't essentially own your own retail store.
Yeah, exactly. The time for me to do that was, I think probably a decade ago. And
I was going to say, is that something you've considered now with your brand, maybe opening a Domiain or Domiain cigar lounge? Because I asked because we've talked to a few lounge owners, or not lounge owners, a few brand owners, and they essentially have said, after the brand is taken off, we would like to, own our own lounge. And I thought that was kind of interesting because that's what I've considered. At first we were like, well, we'll open our own cigar lounge, because we're like, we have a lot of friends who are boutiques and, try to specialize in that.
Sure.
And then, I was like, well, we're doing the podcast, we've started our own brand here and there. We've tested blends with different companies. And then, we're like, eventually the goal would be to open our own lounge. And somebody said, why would you do that? And I said, because obviously I know it's going to take me some time to recoup the money from the brand itself. But I looked at it as, maybe down the line, if I opened up my own lounge, now people have a brick and mortar shop that they can get my stuff in.
Well,
if I'm not in other shops at the time, and then, I considered maybe if that happened, doing exclusive sizes essentially for that lounge and making it, if it's called Turnbuckles and Stogies Lounge, we have exclusive sizes of, our cigars that you can only get there. And this way, not that I'm a marketing guy, because I'm not, but at the same time, it was like, my marketing side was kind of like, well, maybe if you put exclusive sizes in that lounge, now people are more enticed to come there, essentially, not only to pick your stuff up, but pick up the exclusive that they can only get there.
So, everything you just said is exactly why brands that are new, that are boutique, have a hard time getting into retail. Because retailers, somebody described this to me. If you've seen, I think it's Star Wars, where there's the scene where Han Solo has his, gun under the table, and Guido has his gun under the table, and who shoots first type of thing. So, that being said, people are opponents in this business. They're not enemies. There's very few people that think like that in this business, but they're opponents, right? So they're not going to allow a scenario where they're going to have enabled somebody to gain a bunch of moves on top of it. And the risk or challenge, part of the reason why I wouldn't, go open my own cigar lounge, owning all of this and Domiain cigars and everything else is. I'm a capitalist. I would be making sure that I have the best position possible. I would
Right.
have all the custom sizes and crap you can't get anywhere else on the shelf. And
Right, and
and
that was
it
what
would create
I looked at was the exclusive sizes like, and I go back to the the Drew Estate where they have the the Diplomat Lounge exclusives.
Mhm. Yeah, well, it's a
stuff
different
like
thing,
that.
right?
It is, but that's kind of where I go back to of like
Right.
being that it would be my lounge, I would have the exclusives of my sizes.
Mhm.
Like you said, you can't get anywhere else, and I don't know. I mean, that's something to think of down the line.
Sure.
Because then I look at it as it's a home base for the podcast. To be able to maybe set up events for guys like yourself or Ish or these guys, and then have them in house and be able to sit with them in house and have a spot to do the show.
It would be wise to evaluate which one of those you really want to do the most.
Right.
If you like the retail aspect and the podcast thing, you can go crazy there. I mean, you can make a whole life of that, right? On the manufacturing side, I'll never be done manufacturing. I'm gonna die in position here. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's one of those things. So the problem is whenever all the basketball players want to be rappers and all the rappers want to be basketball players, right? Other retailers will not appreciate you also owning a lounge.
Right.
And there's a handful of examples that people want to point to of people that have made it successful. None of those examples have been in the last 5 years.
Right.
None of those examples have been in a short order. Retailers today, if you already own a lounge and you own a cigar brand, they generally don't want anything to do with your cigar.
Right. No, and I've heard that from quite a few different people, and it's something I've taken into consideration. It's just at the time when this kind of came about, I essentially said it was like my mini empire I was looking to build.
That's okay. Like you can look at media is a great way to reach people, and that's why we do so much media to promote our brand. But there are retailers that do a great job doing both at the same time, being a fantastic retailer and really crushing it with podcasting and
for sure. And the social media aspect has, there were a few cigar lounges that wanted me to work with them. Well, I want to bring you on as a media guy, and you take the pictures for my stuff or the videos. I'm like, okay, well, if that's what you want to do, let's have a serious conversation.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people are like, oh, you're going to charge. I said, listen, I'm not going to charge them an arm and a leg. I said, I'm not going to be that guy that charges you. See, my thing was, and this was just me thinking at the time, I was like, well, I got the podcast. I can at least promote them on the show. Plus I'm doing the social media. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, you could just pay me in boxes of cigars. Because in my thinking, it's product from the lounge that I go to or the lounge I'm helping. I'm like, listen, if you have a cigar of the month that month, or you get a new cigar in that you want me to promote, hey, listen, let me smoke one. Let me try it. Right. And then if I like it, give me a box of that or 2 boxes of that, one for each of us to promote. I said, this way, he can hand out some cigars. I hand out some cigars and people can get their hands on them. And I have a whole box to promote, the artwork and, you might be the exclusive lounge, and people like, but I said, but that's compensating my time. I said, it's compensation for my time, and that brand and that lounge are getting promotion from me plugging them on my show.
Yeah.
And that's now I've thought about, like yourself, you have your own brand, now this is my brand.
Yeah.
So now when people are like, well, we want you to do this, like we had somebody who owned his own brand. I'm not sure what he's doing with it now. Who did a big, golf outing event and was like, we want you guys to come. I said, well, you want me to come as media? Here's my cost. He's like, we want you to come and do your podcast. I said, well, that's different now. I said, coming as friends was one thing. I said, now you want me to come and promote my show? And I'm like, listen, here's, my requirements. It's X amount of money for me to show up. You have to put me up and this, that, and the third. Oh, we can't do that. I'm like, then they're like, yeah, but I'm like, yeah, we're friends. I said, but business is business.
Yeah.
But,
there's a common misconception there in cigars about because it is a very relationship built, business, right? But the relationship is a business relationship. So there's oftentimes whenever money comes between friends, they start to rework a lot of that in their head. Is so it's like you're doing a lot of effort, they're not doing as much effort,
right? And I was kind of like and that was my thing, is there wasn't they were putting it on, but there wasn't the effort or promotion behind it. I was like, so what you're asking me to do is essentially come in as my podcast and give you the promotion you're looking for and promote it all over my platform so that people will see it and come. I said, that's different. You're bringing me in as media. I said, if you would have said to me, hey, listen, you can come to my place. If you can get out here, you stay at my place, or I'll put you in a hotel for the weekend. If you could lend me a hand or two, distributing cigars, whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's different.
Yeah.
If you offer me a hotel room and you say, hey, I want you to come and help me, cigars. If you want to promote your podcast, you can, but I'm not you're not coming as just to promote your show.
Right. Yeah.
I said, then that's the story. I said, but as media, because this is, and I told this to the wrestling business.
Right.
It's a booking. You're booking me. There's a fee to book me.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, yeah, but I said, listen, let's be honest. I brought it back to cigars. I said, you have your own brand. I said, somebody wants to do an event. I said, what's your requirements? Well, they got to buy X amount of boxes. And I said, okay. I said, this is your event. You want me to come in? Here's what I require for me to be able to do that.
Well, I think everything you're saying, though, is probably evidence that you might be more interested in the retail aspect, right? Because you seem to have a knack for what it takes to make money in cigars, right? But the brand thing is incredibly costly for a number of years. But I mean, I know retailers that 6-12 months out, they're able to support themselves,
right?
No, absolutely. A brand, you're not going to be remotely close to that for supporting yourself for a number of years.
I like doing my podcast. I do. I love it.
Yeah.
And I tell everybody, they're like, yeah. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, does it suck to have to do it on every Sunday? I'm like, it does. I said, but I've been doing it for going on 4 years now.
Yeah, it's a while. Yeah.
I was like, and people are recognizing me from the show now.
Wow.
I said, I have people reaching out to me. Hey, we'd love to come on your show. What do we do? What's the requirements? And I'm like, well, listen, here's the same thing I had mentioned to you. I'm like, we asked for 2 cigars.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody's like, yeah, but that's out here and you're asking for, I'm like, yeah, but I said, what am I supposed to do? I said,
but
sometimes
they complain about asking for 2 cigars
because not the companies, but other people like, you're asking for free stuff. And I'm like, no. I'm like, listen, and again, people, and there was other people who have podcasts who are like, listen, you know what? That's how they get compensated for whatever time they give. If it's 2 hours or 3 hours, whatever. Yeah. And they're like, they're not making money from this right now. Their compensation is the cigars they get to smoke.
Sure.
And,
I know some that will never ask for anything. Unless it's through a formal contract, they won't ask for anything. And then
we always put it out there. Listen, we ask for 2. If you don't want to send, hey, listen, that's okay. We still want to have you on because we like to promote the smaller brands.
Mm-hmm.
Like we've had some people who are like, oh, we can't do that. Is that? I'm like, no, it's not a deal breaker. I'm like, it's not. I said, if I can get my hands on it, I said, if you have somebody that has them in stock that's willing to ship. They're like, we don't deal with a lot of people that, it's smaller companies that don't deal with a small batch or with this one or with that one. You know, and I'm like, well, do you have a place that I can order from that'll ship? Or, you know, I'm like, can I send you the money and you get them to ship? You know, like, I'm like, I don't know how this works. I said, and if it's too complicated, it's okay.
Sure.
You know, because we've had brands come on, you know, that were just starting out. And, you know, like, I don't have a lot. I'm like, listen, you don't have to have a lot of stock. I said, if you can't send, it's okay. You know, because at the end of the day, we try to make it like, again, like I said, it's a virtual lounge. You know, you might be a new upstart brand whose product hasn't come in yet, but you're still willing to do the media rounds, and we want to give you the time. And we've had companies where we're like, listen, you can come on next week. And we've had them where, no, listen, you know what? Let me send you some of my old stuff. Just smoke the old stuff. Let me know what you think. I'm revamping the blends.
Okay.
And then when the new blends come out, you know, I'll send you the new stuff. Like, we had one guy who's a new brand. He's been out of, I think, a year or two now, and he's revamping his blends. He went, I guess, from DR to Nicaragua now. And he's like, oh, I only have the old stuff left. And I'm like, well, you know, I like to try the old stuff before I try the new stuff. You know, I was like, listen, where can I order some? Can I order them from you? Do I got to go here? And he was like, oh, the website doesn't work, but hey, listen, you know, I guess he's revamping the website or whatever. He's like, hey, listen, you know what? Send me your address and I'll send you some of the old stuff. I said, okay. You know, listen, there's companies I've offered to buy directly from them. I'm like, how does this work? Can I buy from you before the show? You know, I've had people, hey, listen, go on and order, you know, from so-and-so, and then let me know, send me the order number. I'll send it to them and I'll have it sent out, you know, the next day and make sure they get it to you as quick as possible.
Yeah.
You know, and I've done that. And I have no problems doing that, you know, and I'm like, then there's some brands where I just want them to come on. You know, like where, you know, I'm like,
hey, you spoke the cigars too. You know,
I'm like, we'd love to have you come on. And I was like, I may not have your cigars. I'm like, but I still want you to come on because it intrigues me. Yeah. You know, and like I said to my dad when I contacted you, I'm like, you know, hey, listen, I'm like, and I showed him the pictures and everything, and he was like, oh wow. You know, he was again, the post caught his eye because we like, you know, I'm a big picture photographer, not a professional photographer, but like when I take my own pictures or videos, you know, I want them to look good. Yeah. So, you know, when I seen your pictures and I'm like, oh, look, he's got the field, he's got, you know, pictures of his, like your box press collection was in front of it looked like the mold and then the tobacco leaves.
Yeah.
I was like, that intrigues me because, you know, I'm like, well, now does he own the field? Does he own the factory? You know, and I was like, okay. And, you know, and then I'm like, well,
gets people moving.
And I'm like, listen, even if, and I tell everybody, I'm like, even if they don't want to send cigars, I'm like, I still want them on because eventually I'm going to get my hands on them somehow, some way. If they don't have a, you know, an online presence, or, you know, they might have a brick and mortar shop that ships and they say, hey, listen, you know, try these, or, you know, call this, message this place and tell them I sent you, you know, whatever. And it's like, okay, cool. You know, but I will say, dude, I'm enjoying your cigars. Like I'm getting ready to, it's what, 9 o'clock? Just about. Yeah. I mean, if you want to wrap it up, we can.
No, we're good.
I mean, I got.
I was going to tell you.
That's the
side. So before I started Domiain, before I had moved down to Nicaragua, and I'd stopped doing the coffee company, and I had a friend who had just opened a retail lounge.
That's what I'm gonna let up now.
Perfect. It's number 5 cigar of the year, Cigar Coop.
That's just like
so
perfect size for a Robusto too. I don't know what it is.
The Gordo, I love the Gordo. That's actually
you know what? I like it because it seems it's not big, but it's like it's perfect because I like the 52s, but like when it gets that 54, 56.
I got one literally right here. That's my favorite in Entropy. And actually, Cigar Coop picked up on it. He made it his number 5 of the year.
And now, let me ask you this, because I know you covered it with my dad. What's the prices on your boxes?
So individual cigars are MSRP. Of course, that doesn't take into account state taxes and so on, which is going to be different depending on where you are. But our average range is about $10 to $14.
Actually, that's not bad.
It's right in the sweet spot. So that puts most of the box ranges, I think around 200, 250.
And is it 25 count, 30 count?
20 counts.
20 counts. Okay, because I've seen some people do 24, I've seen some do 23, I've seen some do 50. So and those boxes look a little bigger. That's why I asked, because they looked essentially your normal box. But I do like your concept of the boxes. It's just the way it stands like that with the logo facing out, especially. Yeah, I mean, how does it open? Does it slide open? Does it lift open?
Yeah, it slides up.
Okay. No, I like that, because if I had a humidor big enough to display boxes, like to be able to stand them and then pull them out and, like that, slide it open, I would love to display it like that, because it brings, like you said, the prominence to your brand.
Yeah. I think every new cigar company should, when it comes to boxes, consider slide top boxes. A freshman release of a cigar company in a slide top box, I feel like, is the most adequate way to put yourself on the market first. And then you should kind of consider, whenever you do new blends with new series, maybe going into a different formatting. But I would say that today, 20 count for all cigar companies post 2015 has really been the sweet spot. So most people are going 20 count. There's a big preference right now towards doing paper packed, like craft packed cigars. The reason I would recommend against that as a new brand, and I actually talk about this on our blog, tbfdsa.com, that's our factory website. I have some blogs that I write on there for new brands, and teach people how to get UPCs and barcodes for their products, and
actually,
resources on there.
I like that. I'm gonna have to go. Look into that.
A bunch of resources. Yeah. So I talk about distribution agreements. I talk about kind of a lot of the stuff that doesn't get talked about.
And now, do you do like almost like video formats as well? Do you have like a YouTube channel for the factory or anything like that?
For Domiain Cigars, we do. So Domiain Cigars on YouTube. Check that out. We've been slowly working on it, but I'm about to lose. This is my YouTube studio, which is also our rolling room. The problem is I'm about to lose this space because we have to hire like another 10 people in the next 2 weeks.
And now is that rollers? Is that for rollers wise?
Rollers, yeah, rollers. So we have to hire a lot more people. So we have to hire some more packaging people and some more controllers. But basically, I'm going to lose this space. So I'm designing a new studio because we just built, the other side of the factory, which is above my house. I have a home that's connected to the factory.
I mean, that's pretty convenient though, that it's right upstairs.
Yeah, literally, like people think the middle of the night does something come to you and you get right to work on it. It's like, yeah, actually, I just walk out my door and walk into the factory.
Right. That's like us. Yeah. This is our. It's called a mud room, or depending on where you are, it's an all seasons room.
The room you're in is an all seasons room. It reminds me of a Dexter room.
Well, so you bring that up. Plastic. I put this plastic up because this room isn't heated.
Okay.
Because it's
that makes a lot of
sense,
kitchen. Actually. Yeah.
So I put it.
So you don't get the draft.
The lady I work with was like, "Listen, if you put plastic over your windows, it combats the cold a little bit." Ooh. So I have plastic over the back door and over these two windows, because my windows are 56 by 37. They're huge.
Holy crap! Huge.
They're huge windows. So this whole room, there's one set there, one set here, one set here, and one set here. So there's 2, 4, 6, 8 big windows.
Okay.
So what I did is I left the 2 cross windows open, so that when me and my dad were sitting here, whether it's just to smoke, do the show, whatever, we're not cold.
Yeah, so I assumed it was like your wife or something didn't want the cigar smoke getting in the house type of thing.
No.
But
So
it also
the place,
I've seen guys do that.
Yeah, no, the place we're renting, the owner doesn't want smoking inside the house. Because we moved from an apartment to a house, and we were smoking in our apartment. Our landlord didn't really mind, so we would open our back sliding glass door, but we only had an outdoor porch.
Okay.
And come wintertime, trying to leave the door open and smoke was getting to the point of like it got so cold we couldn't do it. So when we moved in here, we're like, listen, we smoke cigars. Are we allowed to smoke? He goes, listen, I don't care if you smoke out in that room, but as far as like inside the house, I call it inside the four walls, no smoking.
Right.
So, we moved in right before Thanksgiving and it wasn't too bad. And then it started getting cold. And of course, you have these big windows behind us. So we're sitting here like this, freezing. Like we have jackets hanging up in here. But ever since I bought this little space heater and put the plastic up, if I'm coming, because I work for the school district. So like I work on the buses.
Okay. Yeah.
So I work like 3 hours in the morning. And then I'm home for like 4 hours. And then I go back at 1 and I work 1 to like 4.
Okay.
So during the day, sometimes when I come home at 9:30, I'll turn that on, or I'll ask my dad to turn it on before he leaves to take my sister to school, and then I'll when I come home, depending on the day, I'll come sit out here, I'll watch TV. If I missed wrestling, I'll try to catch up on the wrestling from the night before, and I'll smoke my cigar.
Did you what smoke heater did you go with?
I don't have a smoke heater in here. I have a
no smoke. Oh,
no.
Okay.
So what I do at night is like I have, which if you're gonna invest in anything, this spray right here, Ozium.
Okay, Ozium. Okay.
Dude, it will take the smoke smell out like instantly.
Wow. Okay.
Like I spray it while I'm smoking, and then like before I go in at night, sometimes I'll crack the window, just to try to air out whatever's left.
Yeah.
It works. I mean, I've had no complaints. I love this spray. It used to only come in. I only saw Clean Air, which was like a fresh linen scent. This one is carbon black, like the Black Ice air fresheners.
Oh, okay.
So I found this.
Yeah.
I bought it. I sprayed it, and I was like, "Oh, I'm like, this is it."
You got to look up for when you're smoking in the room. Me personally, I don't like any sprays, any kind of sprays like that have a smell to them. I'm really sensitive to that. So like here in the factory, in the saloon, the room that I'm in, they're only allowed to use water during production. So during production, there's no other anything else that can be used. And then we have only a handful throughout the entire factory of like approved chemicals. But when it comes to smoking in the room, I like the filtration. So if the spray works, I'm interested in it for when I rent cars, because I've paid so many. There's no rental car that's safe for me.
I will give you
every rental car.
I will give you
every rental car I smoke in.
So the reason I use this now, I used to use it in my house before, but the reason I really use it now is because somebody we were just mentioning before, I won't say names in case there's any rental car places watching. He does that, and he uses these. He uses Ozium.
Okay, he uses the Ozium. Okay.
What you can get too is they make bombs for your car.
Yeah, I used to bomb my car.
You turn it on. You let the AC run, you put that in there, and that works too, from what I heard. I haven't done it in my car yet.
Yeah.
We used to have 2 cars. My car, my mechanic destroyed, so I gave it back to the loan company.
Dude, I would literally, because I get tired of like paying the fees sometimes, right? But I get it. Like for me, like again, I don't upgrade to first class all the time. I do that on like free points and crap like that. I rarely pay for anything.
This
like
is
that.
really good. I'm getting
but I will
a strong like chocolate note.
Yeah,
and like a nice little light pepper on the retro hail.
Yep.
I think dude, this is
it's like a red pepper.
Yeah, and the Robusto size, since we're on the subject of the sizes and stuff like that before, you know, I hung out with a buddy of mine who smokes a lot of Robustos. And he started getting, he would give me some here and there. And because he's got, I mean, he walks around with like, you know, a travel case of like 1,000 cigars.
Okay. That's a lot of cigars.
Kids, well, you know what it is? His kids are grown. They're on their own. They don't need the money. So and all he does is smoke cigars. He works and he smokes some cigars. So he got me smoking the Robustos. And now I'm like, you know, and then working for a company helped too, because it exposed me, you know, to sizes like a Corona, you know, like a 7x60, you know, the 5x52, 54. And then I kind of grew an appreciation for more of those smaller ring gauges.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and
I think all of us have at some point, you know, in your cigar journey, you know.
No, it's true. And, you know, even my dad, who doesn't, we used to smoke a lot of 660s, me and him. That was kind of what we stuck to, because, you know, we like our Asylums and, you know, the novelty cigars, 9x90s, you know, 7. And then JFR obviously is one of those brands that we've always loved. So, you know, the Lunatics, the 7x6, 880s, 660s, 770s, we've always smoked them. But then you get the Robustos and it's a whole different cigar. Now,
so Asylum is actually the brand that Kevin helped build. Kevin Baxter, the blender that we're making a brand for right now. Yeah,
that's cool.
So that's where he came from originally, but yeah, there's something to large ring gauge cigars. I mean, I'm smoking a 660.
No,
right?
there is, and again, after smoking so many years, and you know, like yourself, gravitating from all the different sizes, when you get a 60, you gravitate, not that you gravitate towards it, but you appreciate it more.
Well, I think for me, because they were not common whenever I got into cigars, right? They were always kind of seen as like, it was like, I'm talking like 15 years out, right? I've been in cigars for 20 years.
And I've been smoking this year in March will make 10 years.
Okay. So at about like 15-ish years ago, right, it was still kind of like, these might go away at some point, right? This might be.
I remember kind of hearing that even when I started smoking, because I would go with my dad to a lounge when I was like 14 or 15. You know, I wasn't allowed to smoke, but you know, he would get off of work, I'd get off of school, and you know, they're like, listen, as long as it's just you guys, or as long as he's not smoking, he can sit there, you know, whatever. And you know, it was like a bonding time for us.
Yeah.
And then being around it for so many years, you know, you get kind of curious.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, so the day I turned 18, I'm like, Dad, you know, I know we always go together. I'm like, I want to go and try to smoke a cigar.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, talk to your mother. I said, Mom, I want to go try to smoke. She's like, one cigar.
She's like, he won't like it.
You know what it is? Because I have asthma too.
Okay.
But it doesn't affect me as much. Mine is more of like a sports-induced kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, so like when I go do wrestling shows, I always have an inhaler in my pocket. And I leave it in my bag for when I'm done. But I tried it. I smoked an Acid Blondie, was my first cigar he gave me.
Right.
And this will kind of give you a backstory to why I'm a full body person. So I smoked an Acid Blondie. Again, not a knock on the cigar. I did not like it. I was talking to somebody and it went up my nose and completely, since this is on YouTube and it's not going to be a live show, that fucked me up. I mean, stopped me dead in my tracks. Like I was like,
yeah.
And then I was like, yeah.
You're like, what is this?
And I want to say it was one of two cigars. It was the Rocky Patel Super Ligero, which is very, very, very hard to find now.
Yeah, I think they stopped making them. I don't know if they make them.
I might still have some left, I think.
Okay.
Or it was that, or it was an Asylum. No, you know what? I'm sorry. It was the Asylum 770 Triple Maduro.
Okay. Yeah.
That was the next cigar I smoked that same day because I got a quarter of the way through the first one. It went up my nose, and that was it. And then from there on, I strictly smoked, and that's how I got my essential affinity for big ring gauges. I started smoking that, and that was it.
That makes sense.
I was
Yeah.
stuck on
Yeah,
big
you know,
rings
the thing
until
is too,
a few years ago.
you know, there are a lot of guys with a lot of experience that got into trying them, right? And then that became all they smoked. And so it was like one of those things 15 years ago where, you know, we didn't know if they were going to stay on the market. And what ended up happening was guys that had a lot of cigar experience started gravitating towards the larger engages because they noticed that they wanted a cooler smoke. And you do get a cooler smoke. The overall temperature that the cigar burns at is actually about the same.
Right.
You're burning more material, right? However, you're filtering it, and to get a puff of smoke, you require less draw time. So you can theoretically get a much cooler smoke. And I think that this is where a lot of even guys that are, you know, blenders that smoke only smaller ring gauge regularly, I think a lot of them are limiting themselves, not trying the large ring gauge. But the other item that I would bring to your attention about, you know, why so many guys that are blenders are smoking smaller ring gauge is this little guy right here, cigar cutter.
I was actually just going to get into, you know, how you started coming up with your accessories and what accessories you do.
So so we only do cigar cutters with Luo Concepts. We make the BTX, which is a magnetically driven. It's an overcam butterfly, which is really the only one on the market.
I actually that's a really nice looking cutter. I actually like.
They're gorgeous. Yeah, and these are all American made.
You know what it reminds me of? Almost like a the way it's closed like that. It almost reminds me of like the wings on like the batarangs.
Yeah, everyone said like, you know, Batman or something else, but yeah. So the reason I bring up cigar cutters is the U.S. market and the retail market has a really high discipline for what they refer to as etiquette. And etiquette is you're supposed to do this, and this with the cigar. You're supposed to prepare the cigar in this way, and so on. Those are actually really good habits, right? Those are really good habits to form because when you straight cut your cigar, which is how we actually, you know, blend and make the cigars for, we make them for straight cutting. So when you straight cut your cigar, you get, you know, on a parejo, which in Spanish just means equal, right? It's equal all the way around, right? So when you straight cut, you get the best potential smoke delivery, right? You get the most open delivery of the cigar. What a lot of guys that are even, you know, master blenders and so on that have been in the business for a long time, what a lot of them do is they pinch open the cigar, right?
Yes, I've learned over the years, even with your nail or like a knife, just take it right around the cap.
Yeah. You can do this, and air will flow through the cigar. And a lot of people in the state market always saw this as a sign that, well, the straight cut, you know, doesn't really matter all that much. You know? And the reality is, it's just that they don't really have the etiquette, like toasting the cigar and all that kind of stuff. Guys that have been, you know, master blenders that have been in it for a while have learned to do that because they've noticed that the temperature of the cigar is better, the burn quality combustion is better when you toast the cigar. So they're all really good steps that you rarely find here. So I have a hypothesis that part of the reason why a lot of the blenders and people that have been in the business for a long time, older, before larger ring gauge, you know, became prominent 15-ish plus years ago, I believe that they were pinching open the cigar. They were getting constricted airflow, not dissimilar from what a punch cut would provide. And that constricted airflow allowed them to smoke the cigar cooler. And that also allowed the smoldering of the tobacco to be less aggressive. Because look, I mean, when you cut into a Corona and you straight cut a Corona, and you're puffing away at it, right? There's a really good chance that you're going to overheat the cigar.
And
right?
and that was something I had to learn, because I again didn't know I smoked with a lot of older guys because that's how I learned how to smoke, but I was always under the impression, because I saw them do it, I never saw them toast. I used to see them just straight puff away, and then over the years I had to learn about the toasting, and then I learned, a lot of times that and a good, like you said, in the factory, I learned from John Huber, which I didn't know, that a lot of the master blenders and stuff in the factory don't use torches; they use Bic lighters. Which I didn't know that, because I always wondered. I'm like, what's the difference in a soft flame and this flame? And then, because we had him on the show, and he had sent a Bic lighter, and it was like a good mark. It was like Crown Heads RV Park, Casino, Hotel, and something else. And I, again, just like you, I asked him, what's with the soft flame? And then, like you said, he went into detail about, some of the cutting aspects. And he goes, the reason I use the soft flame is because I went and sat with, Eladio Diaz and all these guys blending cigars, and I watched them, and that's how they lit it.
Yeah. Well, so there's a lot of factors there too, right? So the soft flame is fantastic for relighting. It's really good at reigniting coals. It is not particularly good at initial lighting unless you're quite talented with it. So it does have a skill issue that it can introduce, particularly for toasting the cigar. Right. My recommendation to anyone who's just getting going, just getting started, is you want to find an ignition source, whether it be soft flame or a torch or a hybrid thereof, that will allow you to cause ignition in the most expeditious way possible. You want to ignite as fast as possible.
I love that word, by the way.
While introducing the least amount of additional heat.
Exactly.
So when you see a guy with a soft flame and he's got to hold it here for a really extended period of time, that is introducing a lot more heat through the tobacco, and a lot of that tobacco is not ignited yet. So you're pushing the humidity down the cigar. And today we are smoking in the States directly out of humidity so often. Right. You've got your Boveda pack in there. It's keeping the cigar spot on. But those cigars, a lot of times, they'll be smoking just fine using a torch. You use a soft flame and you introduce a lot more heat because you have a longer ignition time. That can start to cause malfunctions with the cigar as well.
And I've noticed that. And what I've also kind of done too is, sometimes I'll, because I've learned about the combustion and stuff like that. So there's been times that, I'll toast it with the torch so that it's got the combustion and everything's kind of lit. And then I'll take the soft flame and then, essentially light it up completely.
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, you can absolutely do that.
Let me ask you this, because I like to find this out from, brand owners and factory owners and stuff like that. You make your own cutters, obviously. Do you only make straight cut or V cut? And then what is your so straight cut is your go-to cut then?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's really the most ideal cutter. You have some notable examples of V cut on the market, and I credit Kurt Van Kempel, the former co-founder of Zycar, for putting those on the market again. And he really is the one that kind of ignited that.
And I myself like a good V cut.
The thing is, a V has the potential to open up the cigar and stay uniquely sharp, because you are cutting the cigar using a form as opposed to an action. This cutter here, the BTX, has an involute cutting action.
Hey, what's the price on that? I'm just out of curiosity.
These start in the $250 range, and we used to make them with like elephant leather and all this kind of stuff. Those would go up like 400-ish.
No, I'm
pricey materials.
I don't buy a lot of expensive cutters myself, but that's me.
Sure. Yeah.
But I always like to know because if I guess when I have people like yourself or like we had quality importers on at one point, like I like to know because if I do ever go in the market for a nice cutter, it's like, okay, well, I know Daniel owns this brand. Hey, let me hit him up and see where I can get it, if I can order it online, whatever.
Sure.
Say, hey, I'm looking for this, that cutter you showed me. Where can I get it? And, what's the price on it or whatever. And, then it's not only are you supporting you by smoking your cigars, but you're also investing in the, in the full brand by buying the cutter and then using that with the cigars, because it's kind of like a co-promotion of brands.
Yeah, in so many ways. I mean, Lujo Concepts is a distinct company today from Domiain Cigars, but it is, I would say, for people that own our accessories, they don't like to cut their cigars with anything else after they've used it. You'll understand if you use one for a week and you go back to a regular cutter, how glitchy a regular cutter kind of feels. So I wanted something that was solid and sound and felt like an extension of the smoker. And in so many ways, that's also why a master blender is going to, pinch open a cigar, because they don't feel connected to those devices. Now, here in this factory, all of our people, all of them, anytime they're sampling a cigar, anytime they're sampling one of our blends, they're sampling a customer blend, they're working on some tobacco. If I see them pinch open a cigar, I'm telling them to straight cut it. And the reason, it's not that I'm trying to break that culture, but I'm trying to tell them the etiquette.
This is this is essentially what the market does.
Yeah, this is what your market is going to do to your product. So you need to be doing the same thing to the product, right? It's the same adage too, that a lot of factories will sit here and tell you, oh yeah, our guys can smoke, whatever they want, any blends, any time of the day type of thing. The reality is that they're smoking oftentimes what we call fellows or thirds, right? Which is a cigar that has failed on the table, right? And it's been rejected, and you might get, you might get 2 of them a day, you might get 5, you might get 25, it really depends on what's going on and what they're working on. But those are oftentimes the cigars that they're saying, oh yeah, they can smoke anything. That's not the case also in this factory. They can smoke those, but we actually prefer, if they're going to be smoking one of our blends and evaluating
essentially like this, like the final product.
They need to smoke something that's actually been aged.
And now what is your, well, to kind of go off of the, like you said, with the cutting and accessory stuff.
Sure.
Have you ever decided going into maybe a lighter or anything like that? I mean, me personally, like, again, I know this is a V cut, but like me personally, I love lighters like this that have a straight cut on them or a V cut, because it's, it's portable. You throw it in your pocket.
True.
And to me, it's like if you're going somewhere and, you don't want to carry 2 lighters and 2 different kinds of cutters, you grab a lighter and a cutter, or you grab that, or, like I have one like this that has the straight cut on the back, V cut on the front, and then it's got the torch. I always like stuff like that because, sometimes they're not expensive depending on obviously where you get them. You can grab one. If you leave that at a lounge, you just go order a new one.
Yeah, that's part of why we didn't expand into other accessories. Is the accessory market took a very different change, and it went into kind of fast convenience, and that was not the vision that we had for making accessories. So I personally prefer a distinct departure between what ignites my cigar and what cuts my cigar. I think there's a cleanliness difference between the two. You're often handing them to people and so on.
Right.
And so
that also goes for, and I told it that goes to the don't lick the cap of your cigar and then go use somebody's cutter.
Yeah, it's not a good approach to do that.
I was in one lounge, and I was in there, and the guy went to go cut his cigar, and There it is. This is what I was looking for. And I watched him, and he had like a 60 or 70 ring gauge. And I watched him basically, as I call it, deep throat the cigar and then go use the shop cutter.
Of course.
And
yeah. Of course. Yeah.
he was like, he took it and kind of went, oh, and I was like,
yeah.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. It's unfortunate, but that
even
used to
the
be
owner, like when he went to do that, he went to go use the shop cutter, and the owner was like, no. Like he handed him a plastic cutter and was like, here, you're gonna buy this, you're gonna use this.
Right.
You know, and you, like you said about the cutters, I was looking for this. This company had sent this to me through, I was working with them as their influencer program. And this is like $100 and something cutter on Amazon, or a $70 cutter. This, like you said, you can feel the difference between something like this, you know, that I say is like a higher end cutter, and, you know, something like a plastic cutter. Once you go using this, it's like, I don't really want to use
you get
a regular cutter. Like, you know, I take this too a lot because it's got both cuts.
Yeah.
And it cuts clean. I've never had an issue with it cutting, you know, leaving tobacco or anything like that. But again, it's all, if it does, they're like, oh, but it cuts slanted. I said, no, that's user error. I said, or, you know, sometimes you've probably seen it, when you put the cap on, sometimes there's a stem or two underneath. And when you cut it, you know, it almost like skips. I call it like skips the stem and kind of skims the cap off. And then you have to cut it again to get it all up. Yeah.
That, I mean, again, that really doesn't happen much when you use an envelope cutter, but again, there's not very many of those on the market. And
right.
I would always tell people, you know, the cutting of a cigar, whether you're using my cutter or you're using something else, a cheap cutter, what have you, it should be like driving a nail, not like ramming an axe. Right?
Yep.
So you know, put the blades to the surface, you crack the surface, right? Barely, and then you execute the cut, right? So that's like driving a nail. You know, you barely get it going, and then you can actually drive.
And the way I was taught to cut cigars, you know, and it helped me a lot when I first started smoking, because a lot of the, you know, I met a lot of the older guys who didn't want to hear a word I fucking had to say. They didn't want to, like, their essentially thing was kids need to be seen, not heard. Okay, you know, and that's how I got my knowledge of cigars, because, you know, when they didn't want to teach me, I had to go on Google.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, if I liked a cigar, if I liked your Neutron, I would go on Google and what is it made with? Where is it made? Who makes it? And I would learn these things. But, you know, there was a few guys in there that were willing to help me and that I did become friends with. And the way they taught me how to cut a cigar was with a regular straight cutter, you know, a plastic straight cutter, whatever. Put your cutter on the table and put your cigar inside of it and just snip, and that would give you a perfect cut each time.
Yeah.
And I mean, I used that for years. I used that method.
Yeah,
because
it's not a bad method. I mean,
it wasn't, and it helped so much. You know, it's little things like that you don't realize that will change essentially the way you learn things. And then once I did that, then I would get, you know, perfect cuts here and there, which I still use today. I mean, I get perfect cuts, and, you know, if I don't feel like playing with a regular cutter and trying to line it up, I'll just put it right in the perfect cut, snip it off, and call it a day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and myself personally, I like the V cut, but I've noticed myself lately, and for probably the past, I would say, year or so, for the most part, a straight cut has been my go-to.
Yeah.
The only one I've never been a huge fan of, because I've tried it, I don't like, only one place I will have them punch it. And that's when I go in the Bronx. I go to Rosario Cigars. He used to blend for like AJ and Arturo Fuente and all that. He used to roll for them. He does flavored cigars, and he's the only one I will smoke, because he doesn't, like, you get a lot of them, they don't, I call it, do it properly.
Mm-hmm.
He does it where, like, he'll roll it, he ages it, he makes sure it's where it needs to be. And when you're smoking it, you're not getting that taste through the whole cigar. It's just on, like, the cap and maybe the outer leaf, just to kind of give you that little bit of flavor.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he's the only guy I will let punch my cigar because I want that. I'm going there for that flavor.
But that's kind of the thing with the sweet tip too. Is a lot of sweet tips do better with punching because you have more of the gum. You know, are you familiar with how they actually make sweet tips?
Here and there, I've never asked because I don't do a lot of the sweet stuff, but like I will, as I call them, the infused. Like I'll smoke the tobaccos from time to time, because I do like my coffee in the morning, or right now, But like to change it up, I have a very select few like infused I'll go to. Like I'll go. I mainly go towards the tobaccos because it's not overpowering.
Mm-hmm.
And you're still getting the full tobacco flavor along with the, like you said, the sweet cap and the nuance of the coffee.
Right.
But like you get some of them that I've tried and I'm like, this isn't good. I can't, like, I'll smoke and I'm like, yeah, nope. And I can't, over the years, I can't tell you how many cigars I've tried and I've put right back. The only other one that I do go to very rarely is the Javas.
Okay. Yeah.
But like as far as like the sweet cap or infused, like I'll do the Deadwoods.
Yeah,
I like those. And now I've actually become a big fan of the Dominicana they just released.
Okay. Yeah.
Because it's essentially an undercrown shade with a sweet cap.
Yeah.
So you're not getting infusion throughout the whole cigar. It's just at the cap. It lasts for a little while, and then it's gone, and it's a regular cigar.
Yeah, usually they don't use sugar. Sugar has a lot of bacteria kind of naturally occurring in it. So there was a tendency a long time ago to use sugar in the gum, right? And the vegetable gum that we use to hold together the cigars.
Yep.
So the way that it's actually done today is they use a diabetic sweetener. So it's a diabetic sweetener you buy at the pharmacy. So it's USP, which is pharmaceutical grade diabetic sweetener. And what they'll do is they'll cook that into the gum glue, and then whenever the roller is putting it together, that puts kind of the sweet cap on it. The problem with that really is that sweetness is like saltiness.
Right.
So it's really hard to continuously measure an accurate level of sweet.
Right.
So there's actually a company out in New York, of all places, that you'd probably be able to tour pretty close. But they make a lot of those sweeteners that the industry uses, and they make some of the aerosolized ones. The aerosolized ones is where they actually pump the whole aging room full of that aroma, and the tobacco kind of naturally hydrates with it, so they dry it out real good and then hit it with the aerosolizer. It's a unique process. It's still for me an artificial process, but cigars are a oral factor experience, right? So oral factor is in your nose cavity, on your palate a little bit, but there's been a tendency to make them a gastronomic experience. A gastronomic is on the palate, right? That's like food.
Yes.
How we eat food, So for me personally, I believe tobacco is unique in that it is the only thing that you can consume that is a consumer product that does not require additional modification after to make it a oral factor experience. Now, when you look at like Scotch, bourbons, all these types of things, they require significant amounts, oftentimes, of doctoring to sugar them up to even make them a gastronomic experience. So it is quite unique. The leaf is really incredible in that it doesn't require anything but time, temperature, and water. Even making beer, making alcohol requires additional components to turn that chemistry into brandy to turn it into bourbon to turn it into. It has all of the components that it needs coming out of the field with the addition of time, temperature, and water. So that's what's for me really incredible, is that it provides this oral factor experience without needing any type of substitute. But people like sweet flavored stuff. So
now let me ask you this, because I was looking at something before that was talked about on another show that we did. When your cigars, because this has been brought up a lot, with the, as I call it, the darkness of the wrapper, do you guys like spray it with, because it's been talked about, because again, like I said, I have a friend, Ish, from BAMF. He's been around for a long time, and he's seen kind of what they do to the leaves. Like with spraying it with wine or with Coca-Cola or stuff like that. Do you guys do that, or do you age it naturally?
So
be this dark, essentially. This, like for something like this, it's pretty dark, and I know a lot of times when you get them that are super dark, or he even pointed out like when they produce a lot of smoke, there may be some additive in the wrapper or something like that. Do you do that, or do you guys just grow them naturally like this?
So it's a great question. So I'm actually looking forward to covering this on our YouTube, Domiain Cigars on YouTube. I'm going to do a series on this. I'm probably going to get a lot of hate from the manufacturers.
You know what? I love learning about stuff like this, because it's always interesting to hear other people's perspective. On whether you might have something that somebody else doesn't do, but they may go watch your video and go, "Oh, you know what? He's right. Let me start doing it this way now." You might start a change or a trend in the industry that may have been needed, or people may have not realized.
Well, there's certainly on all finishing techniques, they're wrapper dependent. So what I mean by that is there are certain finishing techniques you can do. To clear it up right away, Domiain cigars, we don't use any finishing technique regularly on our cigars. That is not all natural. And what I mean by that is there are additives that people put on their wrappers. So one of them would be like Connecticut broadleaf. So Connecticut broadleaf, there's one company that does really well. They have no trouble finding themselves in top 25 lists every year. They really only make, I think, probably 2 cigars that most cigar smokers would consider to be, grade A or a level smoking experience.
I probably know a company.
I'm not going to name the company, but
they
use the mineral oil technique, right? So the mineral oil technique is, it's kind of loosely painting the cigar, right? There is full on painting the cigar, and then there's the basically brushing of it, right? The wine technique is not a normal wine. We actually have some, and I would not hesitate to use the wine technique on something like San Andreas, right, or something like broadleaf.
Right.
You use it on something like a Connecticut Claro, Connecticut Shade, it's going to look awful.
Right.
There's another company in the Dominican Republic that sells millions of cigars. We're talking tens of millions of cigars, and they're predominantly using Connecticut wrappers from Ecuador, and they use the banana vinegar technique. So whenever
before, that's interesting.
Yeah. So what they do is they make a banana vinegar. You can also buy banana vinegar. And banana vinegar they call it cleaning the cigars or brushing the cigars. So I wouldn't hesitate to use the cleaning method. The brushing method is pretty aggressive. That's where the cigar is very wet, right? The cleaning method is an abstraction where you're basically using a sponge, right? And the the Connecticut, what they'll do with that, with the banana vinegar, is they'll basically take the sponge, they'll sponge it, and then they'll quite literally wipe down the cigar as it goes through color sorting, right? And their stance on this is that there's a lot of bacteria that could be, residing on the cigar through aging, and the vinegar has a much more aggressive pH than the tobacco.
Right.
The vinegar also evaporates, right? The wine also evaporates. It leaves behind no cosmetic effect in any significant way. But the wine is tremendously more effective at cleaning the surface of the tobacco.
Right.
The wine is about, I think we looked it up, it was like 30% somewhat alcohol. I have to find out exactly.
Wow.
They make it in Honduras. It's actually called a Honduran elixir wine.
And now is it obviously, because it's in the cigar, I would assume it's consumable as far as like drinking and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. Well, the thing is, by the time you can drink it, right? But it was actually originally it was what they do is that it has tree roots in it. So they go out and they harvest there's a bunch of these trees that only grow in Honduras, right? In Honduras and kind of Central America, and they harvest the roots of these trees and they bake it in this like elixir, right? And tobacco, there was a series of tobacco rituals. So when you would smoke a cigar, a tobacco, because cigar was just named tobacco,
Right.
So whenever you would smoke, they would be like these cone type shapes and all that hundreds of years ago. So the elixir that they would make, the alcohol that they would make was actually part of that ceremony, right? So whenever they figured out that they could basically use it to clean the cigars, they're actually like blessing the cigars,
right?
Doing this, and so this became. So let me table this real quick though, because Honduras has had a incredible history with cigars.
And I've noticed even lately in the last few years, they've kind of been on the rise as far as like a lot of people they've always been, like you said, they've been around for a while, but a lot of people, I guess, are just discovering that they can use more of that.
Well, no, I would say the tobacco they produce is still today challenging. But I would say what I mean by their history is that a lot of techniques have actually come from Honduras. The Honduran wine is one technique that came from Honduras. That it's a brilliant technique. It's really a brilliant technique because it does what the banana vinegar does to a broadleaf or San Andreas cigar without staining the cigar. Right. Because it evaporates. It's a great alternative. No residual anything left behind on the surface type of thing. It's a great way to do it. The banana vinegar is fantastic for a Connecticut cigar to do that. We've not used it for our Connecticut cigars or anything like that, but other finishing techniques, the mineral oil thing. Then you have cooking, like actually cooking the wrapper, which we don't use any of that, obviously, on Domiain. Cooking the wrapper does modify the wrapper. You do get a lower flavor expression, but most commonly what they'll do is they'll take like a Habano, which is like maybe a tad darker Claro, right? It's like pretty light Habano. The color of wrapper is not dictated by whether it was shade grown or not. That's, we shade grow to thin the wrapper. Right. We don't shade grow to dictate the color, right? So sometimes you get Habano that is really light, and in fact, probably 20-30% of every crop is going to be pretty light coming out of the Pelon. It just does not have the available proteins in order to cause oxidation on the surface, which is going to darken it up. So what they'll do is they'll put that into a caldera. Caldera is just a $2 word for saying like a big ass bucket. And they put it into a steamer and they'll steam it ambient 120, 170. I mean, you can kind of like dial in what you want the center steam to be at, and that'll darken up and thin out the wrapper massively. So it takes otherwise unusable product and turns it into something usable. the problem is coming out of that, it doesn't really taste like Habano anymore, because you've just sped up and modified tons of proteins. You've broken down cellular walls in the tobacco.
Right.
It'll smoke fine, right? But it's not going to have the same bright taste that a nice Habano has. So a lot, unfortunately, of factories that make cigars that are like 5 and 10,000 cigar orders are using that because they don't have a continuous supply of Habano, right? So they'll or Maduro, which kind of doesn't exist anymore, right? The other method is the steam wheel, which does get used. We use it on our AAA cigars. I mean, steam wheels are an industry standard at this point, where you've got about 110 or so, 120 ambient in the room. The tobacco is put on this giant wheel and it's spun around so that it can aerate, right? Which does a couple of things. Does it speed up the process of finishing the tobacco? Yeah, by about half sometimes. But more importantly, is it softens the tobacco and it hydrates the tobacco in an incredibly good way, which does not cause the cellular walls to break down the same way that it does in a caldera, where the tobacco is not moving at all.
Right.
The cellular walls actually end up with an even better elasticity to them, right? So so they're quite nice. So the steam wheel, then you have 100% natural process, right? Natural process is you put it in a cologne, you rotate the cologne, 120, 125 over, you rotate it, right? That's the natural process. You could be looking at, 8 on a low side to 36 months, depending on what you're doing, for a natural process to finish up.
Right.
So it can take a long time. But yeah, that said, I mean, there are a lot of finishing techniques. There's a lot more detail than what I just went into there about how and why you would use each one of those techniques. The painting of the cigars and the cooking of the cigars is probably the most reprehensible for most cigar smokers. The mineral oil thing, for example, the cigar will just smoke endlessly. I mean, you can kind of spot a mineral oil cigar from a mile away because it has an unusually high amount of oil slick on the surface. A lot of times that's because they today don't use as much paper. So you used to, whenever you would mineral oil a cigar, you would wrap it in paper. So we do something called tabacchiato in paper, where we'll roll them in paper without doing the mineral oil, but we're doing that because we want a smooth finish on something like a broadleaf, which tends to be coarser on the finish. So finishing has a lot of kind of technical ins and outs. But yeah, I look forward to doing I'm going to do kind of a video series where I'm actually showing you, here's how they make each one of these preparations, and here's what it is. But yeah, certainly the Coca-Cola thing, I've not ran into that one. I'm not terribly.
I think that was an older technique they used to use. I haven't heard about too much anymore. He's been around so long, so he's kind of been through this and seen a lot of this happen.
Yeah.
And has been willing to share the knowledge with us and kind of explain it.
Sure.
But listen, as we're winding down here, we've been 3 hours now. It's just been amazing. I thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. Definitely would love to have you back on for sure. Whatever you release the next cigar or whatever, even if you want to come back on and say, hey, let's come back on and talk about this, or if you want to get even more in depth than we already have, just let us know. Now, just for everybody to kind of follow you, where can they find you, your website and stuff like that, and plug all that? And then if you can send me everything, like your YouTube and website and stuff like that, or if you have a link tree, send that over so that when I put this up, because it'll probably go up during the week, as we tend to do sometimes like special releases of a interview we did. I did it with
Carolina Blue. We sat down with somebody not long ago. I released their interview, like a surprise. Hey, by the way, Wednesday night, we're going to release our interview with, Domiain Cigars or this guy or that guy. And, it kind of, because we're trying to pump out more content for people. That's our goal this year. So I've put up an unboxing video, kind of like guest reveals, stuff like that. So I'm trying to work on more of that.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, if you can send me everything, tell everybody where they can follow it, obviously, and then it'll be in the show notes below.
Yep, it's super easy. So domaincigars.com/start, which is also on our Instagram page. All of our links are there. And then I'm Daniel C. Lance, Facebook, Instagram. Those are kind of the only two that I monitor regularly. We're on Rumble as well. Domiain Cigars on Rumble. Domiain Cigars everywhere. So wherever, aside from X, for some reason we got kicked off of X immediately. I don't know why, but we didn't like post.
We're on X, and that's a platform I'm trying to use more and more. I keep forgetting we have it.
We immediately got booted. So
it's funny.
Instagram and Facebook. Yeah.
I keep forgetting to use it because it is a useful platform as far as promoting stuff. If you can stay, they have a very weird guideline. They let weird stuff stay and stupid stuff get. They let the stupid weird stuff stay, and then people like you and me get kicked off immediately, depending on what we post.
Yeah, it's pretty strange, but Domiain Cigars everywhere, Daniel C. Lance everywhere, and then go to our start page, and that has all the links. Has links to our factory, our product locator, our brand, everything.
And now your box press cigars, are those in stores as well, or are those considered like premium accounts? Or how does that work?
Nope. Those are open to everybody. So those are all over the nation.
And now it's the Neutron and the which ones come in the box?
So Neutron and New Gentropy.
Okay, so this one and then
three different sizes of express. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, listen, I appreciate you. It's been fun. I've had a blast. It's probably our longest interview to date, but it's been informative. No, you've taught me stuff that I've either heard about or never really went in depth on, and it's so interesting to learn, like you said, from somebody like you who has, the partner in Esteban and the, probably like you said, the first vertically integrated factory in 30 years. In Nicaragua.
I mean, we just don't know of another one. So
right, it's possible there's more. But for somebody like yourself who is such a new brand and small brand to own their own factory, the field, and everything that goes along with it is very interesting to learn. And that's why I asked about the pricing. Because I'm always curious to know if you own your own field and all of this. Because I know there's a lot of people now investing in the box factories and stuff like that to be able to cut their costs down because now they own it or they're part owner of it. So that's why I like to ask. But I appreciate you jumping on and taking the time with us. Definitely would love to have you back on. And if you ever make it up to the States again, if you make it up my way, let me know.
I will be.
Would love to meet you in person and sit down and have a cigar together. And we like to try to meet our guests if we can. Sometimes it's hard. If
you got to come to the trade show. You got to come to the trade show.
I was supposed to come to the trade show for a few years with Ish, but timing, hasn't worked out to where. As the trade show comes, it's like, but this one's graduating, or it's this one's birthday, or we're doing this. So it's like my plan is to get there eventually, either as media or even with a brand. That. Whatever, like Ish always tells me I have passes to come if I want to go, but it gets so expensive when you try to plan it all out. It's like, you get, by the time you get flights and hotel and everything, it's like I'm in the hole however much money. But I think next year they go back to Vegas.
Yeah, it'll be even more expensive the following year. So
I'm gonna try to make it to the one in Vegas because that's one place I do want to go.
Okay.
Is Vegas. So I'm gonna try to make it to Vegas. I don't think I'm gonna make it this year. I'm gonna try to set it up for next year to be able to make Vegas and hopefully go as media.
Okay.
So that we can.
You can get a media pass really.
Yeah, it was hard for a little while because you had regular people registering as media, and then messing it up for guys like us.
Still kind of happens.
It does, but it was a lot more rampant at one point where it was guys who had no media, no nothing that were going just to get all the free cigars and leave.
Yeah.
You know, and they messed it up for guys like us who are trying to do the right thing.
Right.
So again,
well, you gotta try to come out. But thank you so much for having us on.
Absolutely. And of course, like I said, if I make it there before we see each other, I'll make sure to come over and, you know, I'll make sure to send you a message to say, hey, I'm at PCA. Where are you? You know, come over and meet you and hang out and have a cigar. And, you know, even if it's a in-person interview for 10, 15 minutes, just to get the FaceTime with you and, you know, be able to sit with you and kind of see the whole operation in your booth and talk to some of the guys is always interesting.
For sure. Absolutely.
So, thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right.
And like I said, just send me all of your information so I can put it in the show notes so people can go and find it.
Okay. I will.
And as soon as it goes up on the YouTube, I'll make sure to send you the link so that if you want to put it anywhere, you want to promote it, whatever, you have everything.
Yeah, just tag us and everything. We'll share it out.
Perfect.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, have a good evening, okay?
Thank you. You too.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Life is like a duck. Tough times don't last, but tough people do. Here at Military Broadcast Radio, we're teaming up with our friends at Die Tired, the veteran-friendly music band spreading strength, resilience, and mental health awareness one shirt at a time.
And check this out. Their brand new shirts feature broadcast beaker right on the breast pocket. A reminder that you can weather the storm, and you're never alone.
Shirts are only $25 and proceeds support giving veterans a voice. MBR's mission to teach veterans how to podcast and videocast. Because when our vets are talking, they're not overthinking. They're not second-guessing. Together, we stop the 22 stigma. Grab your shirt today at mbradio.us and hit the shop. Or go directly to toramerch.printavo.com/merch/dietiredband. That's toramerch.printavo.com/merch/dietiredband.
Suit up, stand strong.
Remember, we're unduckable together.
You're built tougher than the storm.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Military Broadcast Radio. As we wrap up today's show, we want to remind you that the podcast of today's episode will be available right after we go off the air. So if you missed any part of the show or want to listen again, be sure to check it out. And remember, we're here to support and honor our veterans. Your stories and experiences matter, and we are committed to giving you a platform to share them. That's right. We're here to give our veterans a voice. So don't forget to catch the podcast and stay connected with us. Giving our veterans a voice.